subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Sabrina, how long can you hold on? Gary asked. I'm okay, but now Primeape is completely disobedient and uses skills randomly. Its current contest condition should be using Thrash. Sabrina said. Sabrina, can you use other skills of Disable and Prison Primeape? Gary asked. Disable is not psychic. I can't do it. Sabrina said. Gary thought about it and was right. Disable is a normal skill, not a psychic Pokemon. Great. However, a Pokeball on Misty opened, and Psyduck suddenly ran out. Why are you running out at this time? Misty asked with a headache. Seeing Misty's Psyduck, Gary said in surprise. Misty, your Psyduck may be disabled. Sabrina, you hypnotize Psyduck and let Psyduck use the Thrash of Disable and Prison Primeape. Ash said. Okay. Sabrina's eyes flashed blue, and a burst of telekinesis burst out, repelling Primeape. Blastoise. Gary also released Blastoise. Sabrina came in front of Psyduck, lifted Psyduck's head, and stared into Psyduck's eyes. Gooba! The hypnotic wave spread, and Psyduck instantly entered the hypnotic contest condition. Bang! At this moment, Blastoise used his body to resist Primeape's attack. Fortunately, he used Feather Dance to reduce Primeape's physical attack. Otherwise, Blastoise would not be able to withstand Primeape's attack. Misty, you command Psyduck. Sabrina said. Okay, Psyduck, use Disable on Primeape. Misty ordered immediately. Gooba. Psyduck walked to the side, stretched out his palms, and a magical energy turned into waves and spread out. Primeape, who was attacking Blastoise, froze suddenly. But the next second, a gloomy shadow power filled the air. Primeape punched out, and the Rage Fist blasted out, knocking Blastoise back several meters. Kami. Wartortle was shocked. He didn't expect Primeape's Rage Fist to have such a terrifying power. Although Primeape's physical attack ability has been reduced, the Rage Fist now has a power of 350, which is more powerful than Explosion. With one punch, even if it can't split a mountain, it can still split the earth. Just when Primeape was about to launch an attack, he felt that his body could not move and found that Psyduck had bound him with confusion. Gary was shocked. He didn't want Primeape to lose. If he lost, everything would have to start all over again. Psyduck, you are so amazing. Misty was very surprised to see Psyduck use confusion to bind Primeape. She really liked Psyduck more and more. Misty, don't let your Psyduck attack Primeape. Once Primeape loses, all the previous efforts will be in vain. Gary immediately reminded. Psyduck, stop confusion. Seeing this, Misty immediately ordered. Psyduck also followed Misty's order and released the confusion restraints. The freed Primeape was not a martial artist. He swung his fist in the air, and the Rage Fist flew over and directly knocked Psyduck out. Bang! Psyduck, who was hit by the Rage Fist, flew out and fell to the ground, and immediately fell asleep. Psyduck. Misty also walked over worriedly to check on Psyduck's condition. I'm sorry. Primeape can't distinguish between friend and foe. I will make it up to you later. Gary apologized and continued to look at Primeape. Counting the Rage Fist he used just now, Primeape has used the Rage Fist 14 times, and there are 6 left. Pidgeotto, you go and lure Primeape to attack you. You can use Sand Attack to confuse Primeape. Gary ordered. Compete. Ash's Pidgeotto didn't say anything and immediately flew towards Primeape, right in Primeape's sky flying. Primeape's body was always trembling because it wanted to use Stone Edge, but it was blocked by Disable and Prison and could not use it temporarily. It wanted to jump up to attack Pidgeotto, but the height it jumped was not high enough. Under Rage, Primeape used Rage Fist again. 15 times. Every time Primeape used Rage Fist, Gary would record it. Although Ash and the others didn't know what Gary wanted to do. Seeing Gary count the number of times Rage Fist was used, they also saw that he wanted Primeape to use Rage Fist all the time. Pidgeotto would occasionally be hit by Primeape's cross chop, but it didn't matter. Anyway, the purpose was to force Primeape to use Rage Fist and just keep consuming it. 16 times, 17 times, 18 times. After more than 10 minutes, Primeape finally used the Rage Fist 19 times. However, on the way to the 20th time, Pidgeotto could not hold on and was caught by Primeape. He was thrown to the ground with a seismic toss and was defeated directly. Pidgeotto, come back quickly. Ash was quick to take Pidgeotto back. Pidgeotto, you go. Ash's Pidgeotto fell down, and Gary's Pidgeotto took over. So the reason why I borrow my Pidgeotto is because it is immune to the Rage Fist. Ash now understood why Gary borrowed his Pidgeotto. This was really a tough job. Pidgeotto also knew what Gary wanted to do and immediately rushed to Primeape to lure Primeape to attack him. Primeape was fiery wrath at this moment. Why were there so many birds? No matter how hard he tried, he could never finish beating them. Instantly, the ghostly aura around Primeape suddenly shrank, and all the ghostly aura condensed on the surface of his body, and his eyes were completely replaced by red pupils. Chapter 77, Raging Evolution, Abandoned Monkey. What happened to Primeape? It's so scary. Ash and Misty were both frightened by Primeape's appearance at this time. At this time, Primeape's body was surrounded by shadow power, and the hair on his body was floating with the shadow power. His eyes turned completely red, as if he was a monster from hell. Primeape punched out, and the huge black fist shadow passed through Pidgeotto's body, rushed into the sky, and disappeared in the air. The next moment, Primeape was filled with shining light, and his whole body was covered with the light of evolution. Great, it succeeded. Gary was surprised. He didn't expect this test to succeed. He didn't expect the close combat to go so smoothly. Ash, the other two, and Sabrina were also shocked. Obviously, Gary did so many things just to make Primeape evolve, but Primeape actually had an evolved form, which they didn't know at all. The light of evolution faded away, and a ball-shaped body covered with light gray hair. Its drooping hair looked like Qin. The rings on its hands were only left on the left and right, and the rings were still cracked. It had a pink nose, red eyes, and a cross of blue veins bulged between its eyes and forehead, looking angry. It really evolved. Ash took out the Pokédex in surprise. Pokédex. Unknown Pokémon. No information recorded in the Pokédex. What? Unknown Pokémon. Could this be a new evolution of Primeape? Ash didn't understand what the Pokédex meant by no record, but Xiao and Misty knew it very well. The Pokémon that was not even recorded in the Pokédex made by Professor Oak showed that the evolution of Primeape was very rare. Don't get me wrong, this is Forsaken, the final evolution of Primeape, but the evolution method has always been unknown. I was just testing whether my method could make Primeape evolve into Forsaken. Gary said, "Is Primeape strong?" Ash asked curiously. "Very strong. It now has both fighting and ghost attributes. It has high physical strength and balanced abilities in all aspects." Gary said, "Ghost type." Although Ash didn't know how the strength of Pokémon compared, he also understood how difficult ghost-type Pokémon were to deal with during his recent travels. Gary didn't explain too much and walked in front of Primeape. Ash and the others became nervous immediately. Primeape's furious look just now was still vivid in their minds. Even if it evolved, it might still be angry. "You evolved successfully. Congratulations." Gary put his hand on his arm. Although Primeape looked ferocious, it still nodded obediently and didn't object to Gary touching it. Everyone was relieved to see that Primeape didn't attack violently. "Come in and rest. You've worked hard enough." Gary took out the Pokeball and took Primeape back. In order to perform and use the Rage Fist 20 times in a row, Primeape also suffered a lot. Gary also looked at the attributes of the Forsaken. Pokémon, Forsaken, Attribute, Fighting, Ghost, Level, 35, Potential, Quasi-Elite, Ability, Unyielding. When the ability is reduced by rival, the physical attack will be greatly improved. Skills: Grab, Fury Swipes, Focus Energy, Low, Kick, Seismic Toss, Cross Chop, Thrash, Rage Fist, Shadow Punch. Teacher skills: Mega Kick, Stone Edge. Intimacy, 255, maximum value 255. Evolved into Forsaken, only a Shadow Punch skill was awakened. Shadow Punch is not as good as Rage Fist, but Shadow Punch has the advantage of acceleration, which is still useful. Thank you for your help. I will treat you to the luxury set meal of the hot spring town tonight. Gary said, the luxury set meal here in the hot spring town is not free to the public. You need to pay for it. Really? That's great. Ash was very happy. Not only did he watch Gary's method of training Pokemon, but he also got a macho brace, and now he can have a luxurious hot spring meal. It's really great. Then, Gary asked his Pokemon to train in the afternoon, and he called Professor Oak to tell him about the evolution plan of the Forsaken that he had researched. Gary, what you said is true. You really found a stable evolution plan for the Forsaken. Professor Oak's shocked voice came from the phone. Yes, my Primeape evolved into the Forsaken with my evolution plan, so I still need your help to test it. With my method, it should be easy to evolve. Gary said, with the resources that Professor Oak can mobilize, it will be no problem to mobilize more than a dozen Pokemon that can disable. At that time, all offensive skills except the Fist of Rage will be imprisoned, which will be more efficient. I remember Ash also captured a Primeape, but I can test it in your way. Professor Oak said, Professor Oak, I don't have my Primeape with me. Ash interrupted. Because Gary was on speakerphone, Ash could hear it. Ash, why are you with Gary? Professor Oak asked in surprise. We met on the road, and I saw how Primeape evolved into Forsaken, and I helped. Ash boasted. Then why don't you have your Primeape with you? Professor Oak was more concerned about this question. It's a long story. Ash told him about his experience in the P1 fighting competition. After listening to Professor Oak, he was also numb. He actually gave the Pokemon he had just met to others to train, just in case he was afraid that he would not get it back in the future. Then, Ash, can you send Primeape to me? Professor Oak asked. That's possible, but we are not in the city at the moment, and there is no teleporter here. Ash said. Then Ash, wait until you get to the city and teleport to me later. I still need to study Gary's evolution plan carefully. After that, Professor Oak hung up the phone. In the next 2 days, Gary stayed with Ash and his party in the hot spring town, and they trained Pokemon every day. Sabrina was also responsible for learning Zubat's hypnosis and helping Misty with hypnosis training on Psyduck. Zubat was not bad. He mastered how to use hypnosis to issue commands to Pokemon in 3 days. Although hypnosis took a long time, it was enough to hypnotize Psyduck. Psyduck also proved its potential. When Psyduck entered the hypnosis contest condition, he was the Duck God. However, the Duck God contest condition was very unstable and could only last for less than 1 minute. Within 1 minute, Psyduck was the Duck God. In more than 1 minute, he was the Red Duck. Gary and Sabrina said goodbye to Ash and rode all the way. After riding for 2 days, they finally arrived at Fuchsia City. After resting in Fuchsia City, the two went to the outskirts of Fuchsia City to find the Fuchsia Gym. Chapter 78, Flash Venonat. Ninja Aya the forest outside Fuchsia City. Pidgeotto, did you find anything? Gary specially released Pidgeotto to help find the gym. Pidgeotto, who has the sharp vision ability, is very suitable for the search work. Bye. Pidgeotto nodded, indicating that he had found the target, and he led the way in front, letting Ash and Sabrina follow. Soon, the two came to a ravine with a single plank bridge. Seeing this single plank bridge, Gary was sure that Koga didn't want anyone to challenge the gym at all, and he was really not worried that Trainer would get into trouble here. Xiao, just as Gary was about to cross over, a ball-shaped Pokemon covered with hair appeared at the end of the single plank bridge. LV-27 Venonat / Elite, Gary's eyes widened immediately. Although the Venonat in front of him only had elite potential, its eyes were different from ordinary Venonats. It was a blue compound eye, and the purple color of its hair was also lighter than that of normal Venonats. Golbutt, black eyes. Gary threw the Pokeball without saying anything. Great. Duh. Golbutt's eyes emitted a fascinating beam of light, preventing Venonat from escaping. Venonat immediately realized the danger and immediately used confusion to restrain Golbutt. Golbutt had already responded to the rival stage and released Screech, making it impossible for Venonat to concentrate on using confusion. Then he flapped his wings, and several air cutter formed and flew quickly towards Venonat. Venonat was slow and was hit by the air cutter with excellent results. Continue air cutter. Galbot released the air cutter again, and the ruthless wind fell on Venonat, taking away the last bit of Venonat's physical strength. Very good, it's my turn. Go pokeball. Gary flings the pokeball, and the pokeball leaves a beautiful arc in the air, hits Venonat, and captures it. The pokeball shook 3 times on the ground and then stopped shaking. Now, 2 shiny Pokemon were captured. Gary walked over and just picked up the pokeball, but the pokeball in his hand was teleported away. Venonat. At this moment, a woman in ninja costume rushed out of the woods. Gary recognized her. She was the Fuchsia Gym leader, Koga's sister, but he forgot her specific name. Who are you? Sabrina asked without waiting for Gary to ask. Who are you? Why do you want to steal my Venonat? Aya is a proud girl who will not bow down to outsiders easily, especially because Gary stole the Flash Venonat that she had been waiting for a long time, which made her very angry. Steal your Venonat? Sister, you didn't capture the Venonat just now. Gary said strangely. If the Venonat belonged to the other party, his Pokeball should not be able to capture it. I've been chasing this Venonat for a long time. If it weren't for its ability to escape, it would have been mine long ago. Aya said angrily. Gary believed what Aya said, but this Venonat was a wild Pokemon, so it was only natural that the capable ones would get it. You couldn't blame others if you didn't have the ability to capture it. You can't blame others for your inability to capture a Pokemon. Since the other party wanted to steal the Pokemon he captured, Gary would not give him a good face. Aya was so angry that she wanted to bite him, but seeing that there were 2 people on the other side, she would not have the advantage if she really fought. So Aya thought of a way. How about we have a battle? As long as you win, Venonat will be yours. If you lose, return Venonat to me. Aya suggested. Do you think I'm stupid? Venonat is already my Pokemon. Why do you use my Pokemon as a bargaining chip? Gary asked back. Venonat has been captured by Gary, so it is Gary's Pokemon. Why do you use it as a bargaining chip for gambling? I am the leader of the Fuchsia Gym. As long as you beat me, I will give you the gym badge. Aya said, are you sure you are the gym leader? I remember that the Fuchsia Gym leader is a man. Gary questioned. That's my brother. He went out for something. Aya lied without blushing. I am now the acting gym leader. My name is Aya. No need. I am here to challenge the Fuchsia Gym. As a gym trainer, I cannot refuse a trainer's challenge. If I win the gym battle, I can also get the badge. Why should I bet with you? Gary said, Aya had a headache. This little brat is really hard to fool. I can only use my ultimate move. As long as you beat me, I will give you a skill secret book, said Aya. Skill cheats are good things. They are one of the few props in the Pokemon world that can teach skills. They are very precious because skill cheats are consumable items. 1 less is used each time. These skill cheats are made of heart scales. Heart scales are very magical things. They can convey the thoughts of creatures and record skills in them. However, 1 heart scale is not enough. In modern times, people make heart scales into props in the style of secret scrolls, so that a complete skill can be recorded in the cheats. As long as Pokemon can learn the skills recorded in the cheats, they can master them, but the effect is only once. After the skills in the cheats are learned, the cheat scroll is useless and can only be used as an ordinary scroll to record things. Oh, what skill? Gary asked. If the skills in the cheats are good, this bet can be continued. Poison Jab, said Aya. Poison Jab. Poison Jab is a poison-type physical attack skill with a power of 80. Any Pokemon with tentacles or poison-type can learn this skill. And among all poison-type physical attack skills, Poison Jab is the 2nd strongest after Gunk Shot, which is a pretty good skill. Okay, I agree to this bet. Gary agreed to the bet with Aya. It's a free skill, so why not take it? Follow me. Aya took Gary through a forest. In an open area, there was an ancient building, an old Japanese house. Fuchsia Gym is a very old gym. It is said that it existed hundreds of years ago. The previous Fuchsia Gym was dedicated to Breeder Ninja. After entering the gym, Aya took Ash and Sabrina to the indoor venue of the gym. The venue was made of wood. Gary looked at the indoor gym and felt strange. This venue was too unsuitable for fighting. It was made of wood. If the fire Pokemon was sent out, the gym would be burned down. Gary, there are other people in the gym. At this time, Sabrina reminded telepathically. Gary was stunned, thinking that Aya was Koga's sister. The person Sabrina was talking about should be Koga. It's okay. The other party should be just someone in the gym. There is no malice. Gary said. Seeing Gary say this, Sabrina said nothing more and pretended to know nothing. Chapter 79. Gambling. Koga appears. How are you going to fight? Gary asked. 1 versus 1. Aya currently only has one Pokemon, so it's a 1 versus 1 fight. Okay, let's get started. My Pokemon is this. Go, Sizer. Gary threw the Pokeball. Great. LV37 Sizer / Quasi-Elite. I haven't seen Sizer for a while. It's training with Professor Oak, and its level has grown to level 37. This is Sizer. As a ninja, Aya recognized Sizer at a glance, because ninjas also have their favorite Pokemon, and the Pokemon used by ninjas are basically small, fast, and have the ability to poison. And Sizer has a fast speed and a high assassination rate, and is well known in the ninja world. It is one of the Pokemon favored by ninjas. Send your Pokemon out quickly. Gary urged. I was a little confused. She had seen Gary release a Golbat Pokemon before, so she thought the opponent was not very strong. She didn't expect that he had such a powerful Pokemon. However, Aya would never admit defeat. As a trainer, if she was afraid of fighting because she saw that the Pokemon released by the opponent was powerful, she would look down on herself. Go, Venonat. Aya threw the Pokeball and released a Venonat. LV29 Venonat / Gym. You have a Venonat. Gary said. That's different. The Venonat you captured is a different colored Venonat. Aya said. As a ninja, you need to pay attention to the concealment of the Pokemon of the breeder. Different colored Pokemon are easy to be discovered in nature. What's the point of you capturing it? Gary complained. Who cares? Are you going to fight or not? Aya said angrily. Although she is a ninja, Aya has a girl in her heart. She likes to dress up brightly. Even her ninja uniform is pink, which is very eye-catching. Let's start. Sizer. Use double team to surround Venonat. Gary ordered. Ja. Shadow clones flashed out one after another, surrounding Venonat. Even Venonat with compound eyes could not distinguish the true body of Sizer. Venonat used Stun Spore, spread Stun Spore. Aya ordered. Venonat immediately shook its body, and groups of brown powders spread outward. Air Slash. Gary ordered. More than a dozen Sizers fired Air Slash at the same time. The speeding Air Slash whirlwind the Stun Spore and hit Venonat, with excellent results. Bullet Punch. Whoosh. Sizer rushed to Venonat quickly, and while Venonat didn't react, he fired Bullet Punch in succession, knocking him out of the field and slamming him against the wall. Mao! Venonat didn't fall down and struggled to get up from the ground, but he was already at the end of his strength. Venonat used Psybeam quickly. Aya ordered hurriedly. Sizer used Double Team again, and Venonat's Psybeam missed. Sizer rushed to Venonat again, ready to give the final blow. However, at this critical moment, an Electro Ball came to Sizer. Get out of the way! Gary shouted immediately. Boom! The Electro Ball exploded directly with self-destruct, and the room was instantly covered with smoke. A critical voice came from the smoke. Aya, you are so immature. Aya heard the voice, turned around, and saw the person behind her. She immediately knelt on one knee and admitted her mistake. Brother, I was careless. Gary and Sabrina also saw clearly that the person was the real gym leader of Fuchsia Gym, Koga. Sizer, are you okay? Gary looked at Sizer. The power of self-destruct was not low. Even if Sizer's physical defense was high enough, he would still suffer a lot of damage. Yes. Sizer nodded, indicating that he was fine. He just suffered some impact and was not seriously injured. Next, you must fight me first before you can leave this room. Koga said. Gary felt unhappy. You guys suddenly threw a bomb down, not to apologize, but you must fight you first before you can leave. The champion doesn't have that privilege. You, a gym leader, are really floating in the sky. Who are you? Gary asked. I am Koga, the gym leader of Fuchsia. Since you're a gym trainer, don't you know that it is very rude to interfere with other people's duels? Gary asked. Koga was stunned. He didn't expect Gary to play by the rules and question him. But the old man is still shrewd, and he won't be manipulated by a child. I'm the real gym leader of Fuchsia Gym. My sister pretended to be me. Even if you win, You won't get the badge of my gym. I am right to stop you. Koga said, who told you that I fought her for the gym badge? Gary said. Koga was suddenly stunned. At the same time, he looked at his sister. Aya lowered her head, embarrassed to say that the battle between her and Ash was a gambling fight, which had nothing to do with the gym battle. Then why did you have a Pokemon battle between you? Koga asked. We're fighting in a bet. If I win, she'll give me the skill manual of Poison Jab. If I lose, I'll give her the Venonat I captured before. Gary said. Koga had a headache. He didn't expect Aya to go fight in a bet. You know, there are 3 prohibitions for training ninjas, and betting is one of them. Fighting between trainers is allowed, but there are also many trainers who lose everything because of bets. Aya, if you lose, hand over the skill manual. Koga said. Yes. Aya walked to Gary, handed the skill manual to Gary, and walked back to Koga without looking back. Aya's heart was bleeding. The skill's secret realm is a very precious prop. Aya spent a lot of money to get the Poison Jab secret manual. Okay, you can leave. Koga ordered them to leave. Ding. Obtain Fuchsia Gym badge / rewards. Intermediate rare Candy X10. Sludge Bomb permanent skill learning device. Top quality Poison Barb. Increases the power of poison skills by 50%. X1. Putting away the skill secrets, Gary said. Master Koga, the next step is the gym battle. I want to challenge you. Koga frowned. This Gary is really dishonest. He obviously came to challenge the gym, but he ended up having a bet with his sister first. Not only did he get the skill secrets, but he also wanted to get the gym badge. He is so greedy. Then let's have a 2-on-2 match. What do you think? Koga said. No problem. Gary nodded in agreement. Then let's start. Koga didn't say anything nonsense and threw a pokeball casually. Great. A Venonat appeared, but Koga's Venonat was much more powerful than Aya's. LV35 Venonat / Elite. Chapter 80. Crobat Koga's Venonat is not only of high level, but also has extraordinary potential, elite potential. It can be confirmed that this Venonat is Koga's new Pokemon that he has recently bred. Alakazam, it's decided to be you. Gary threw out the Pokeball. This time, the Pokemon he got back from Professor Oak was not just Sizer. After all, the Fuchsia Gym is a Poison-type gym, so he still needs to prepare in advance. It's Alakazam. Koga could see that Gary had made preparations to challenge the gym. Alakazam, Psybeam. We will use Psybeam too. Both sides issued the same command in unison. Chew, Venonat's Scarlet Compound, eyes shot out Psybeam. Alakazam also used Psybeam without exception. The 2 pink beams collided in midair, and after a few seconds of stalemate, Alakazam's Psybeam defeated Venonat's Psybeam and impacted Venonat's hand. Venonat is a poison type, so Psybeam can naturally deal double damage, which is very effective. Koga curled his lips. It is still a bit difficult to let poison Pokemon and psychic Pokemon compete with psychic skills. Venonat, use Bug Buzz. Koga naturally has to deal with law enforcement. Chi. Venonat suddenly made a piercing chirp, and the energy of the insect turned into sound waves and spread outward. Psychic. Alakazam used Psychic, and a stronger wave of telekinesis burst out. Venonat attacked, and the 2 sides exchanged injuries. Bang! The ground under Venonat shattered. Venonat's eyes lost their luster, and he fell directly. Alakazam carried the top-grade Twisted Spoon, and even if Koga's Venonat had high potential, it could not withstand Alakazam's confusion. However, if this Venonat evolved into Venomoth, Alakazam would not be able to defeat it so easily. My brother's Venonat was defeated as well. Aya thought to herself. Aya and Koga bred Venonat at about the same time, but Aya had never defeated Koga's Venonat. Koga was very calm, took Venonat back into the Pokeball, and then sent out the second Pokemon. Great! A Golbat appeared, LV30 Golbat / Elite. Gary could see that Koga was not seriously fighting him at all, and the Pokemon he sent out were all newly bred by him. Poison-type Pokemon have a shortcoming, which is that their lifespan is relatively short, so Koga has to breed the reserve team immediately after the main team is formed. These Venonat and Golbat are probably Pokemon raised by Koga himself. Gary felt that Koga really had no challenge value. The Pokemon level was there, but the strength was too ordinary. It was estimated that these two Pokémon were still being tested by Koga. Alakazam, use Psychic. Gary ordered. Double Team. Golbat immediately released Double Team to confuse Alakazam's vision. Use Disable. Alakazam immediately used Disable, and the power of Imprison spread outward, dispersing all Golbat clones that were touched. Wing Attack. Seeing this, Koga had to change the order. Golbat rushed towards Alakazam quickly, and just as he was about to swing Dual Wing Beat to attack Alakazam, Golbat's body froze in the air. Alakazam swung the spoon, and Golbat's body flew backwards and hit the wall outside the field. Golbat was hit so hard that his eyes turned white. Psychic. Gary did not give him a chance. Alakazam burst out with a powerful confusion, which hit Golbat and defeated him. At this point, Koga's two Pokémon all lost their combat ability. Alas, this soul badge is yours. After the battle, Koga quickly handed his gym badge to Gary. Thank you. Gary thanked him and took the badge. Ding. Mission completed. Rewards have been sent to the space backpack. This time to challenge the Fuchsia Gym. It is very profitable. I got the badge, and I also picked up a skill secret book for free. Back to Fuchsia City. Gary gathered his Pokémon and looked at the skill secret book in his hand. The Pokémon also looked at the skill secret book in Gary's hand. They all knew the function of the skill secret book and could master new skills through the skill secret book. Don't worry about it. This Poison Jab is for the Forsaken. It has a fighting type. It will be difficult to deal with fairy Pokémon in the future. With Poison Jab, you have a way to deal with it. Gary said, Meow. The Forsaken was very happy and immediately jumped to Gary's side. The other Pokémon all looked like they had been picked up by you. Don't be so happy. Do you know how to use the skill cheats? Gary asked. Mike, the Poison Jab, shook his head confidently, indicating that he couldn't use it. Then what are you confident about? Gary had a headache. After evolving into the Poison Jab, the Poison Jab's personality became somewhat confident. He was very confident in everything he did. He used to have a hot temper, but now he has a kind of indifference to life and death, and he is free and easy to do whatever he wants. Take out the cheats, open it, and use your mind to sense the skills on the cheats. Gary introduced. Mike, the Poison Jab nodded. Take it. Give the skill cheats to the Poison Jab, and the Poison Jab immediately opened it, holding the skill cheats with both hands, and began to sense the skills on the cheats. 3, 2, 1. After 3 seconds, the Poison Jab opened his eyes, put down the cheats, and was about to use the newly mastered skills. His right fist was covered with a layer of liquid energy. This is the Poison Jab skill. The other Pokémon all looked envious. Golbat, come here. Gary waved at Golbat again. Duh. Is he going to improve his strength? With doubts, Golbat flew to Gary. Gary put his hand on Golbat's head and taught Golbat the skill of Sludge Bomb. Duh. Golbat was surprised. It felt that it had mastered a new skill and was overjoyed. How about it? Master a new skill. Gary said, Duh. Golbat was very grateful, and a white light suddenly burst out of his body. Oh, evolve. Gary was surprised, but this was also expected. Originally, Golbat's intimacy was enough for evolution, but it just didn't evolve. Unexpectedly, after Golbat mastered Sludge Bomb, it successfully evolved. The evolutionary light dissipated, and a purple Crobat appeared. Crobat has 2 pairs of wings, 1 large pair of wings, and 1 small pair of wings. After evolution, the ears become longer like rabbit ears, and can hear sounds farther away. Crobat's flying speed has also been greatly improved, and when Crobat is flying, you can't hear the sound of flapping wings. Miki, the Forsaken Monkey, was shocked. He didn't expect Golbat to evolve after mastering the new skill. You should know that in terms of attributes, the Forsaken Monkey is restrained by Crobat. In the future, when they compete, Crobat will become its #1 enemy. Chapter 81. Safari Zone not bad. Gary nodded with satisfaction and took a look at the attributes of Crobat after evolution. Pokémon, Crobat. Attributes: Poison, Flying, Level 33. Potential, Gym. Ability: Penetration, can penetrate rival's barrier or substitute to attack. Skills: Absorb Supersonic, mean look, Poison Fong Cross Poison. Air Cutter, Leech Life. Teacher's Skill, Sludge Bomb. Intimacy, 255. Maximum Value, 255. Carried Item, Soothe Bell. After Crobat evolved, it awakened the skill Leech Life. Leech Life is a bug-type physical attack skill with a power of 80. It looks good, but it is a bug-type skill and cannot get the corresponding attribute bonus. In this case, in terms of power, Leech Life is not as good as the 60 power flying and poison skills. But it's good to be able to awaken a skill. At least there will be a way to deal with psychic Pokémon in the future. Sizer, come here. Gary waved to Sizer. Yes, Sizer was startled at first, and then under the envious eyes of the Pokémon, he immediately flashed to Gary's side. Just now, he used the skill secrets for the Forsaken and helped Crobat evolve. Now it's his turn. Sizer felt that he could learn a skill for nothing. Gary didn't plan to teach Sizer skills. Sludge Bomb is not a skill that Sizer can learn. Gary called Sizer over to improve Sizer's potential. Sizer has a Mega Evolution form and Quasi-Elite potential. The Bronze Crown is the most cost-effective when used on Pokémon with Quasi-Elite potential. What's more, Sizer also has Mega Evolution, so this Bronze Crown must be used on it. Gary reached out and touched Sizer's armor and used the Bronze Crown on it. Pokémon, Sizer, Attribute, Bug Orberg, Level 37, Potential, Elite, Ability, Technical Expert. When attacking, the power of skills below 60 power can be increased by 50%. Skills, Leer Quick Attack, Fury Cutter, False Swipe, Wing Attack, Slash, Bullet Punch, Metal Claw, Double Team, Iron Air Slash. Intimacy, 255. Maximum Value, 255. Huh. Sizer was confused. Why didn't it feel anything? Okay, Gary said. Pokemon's potential is improved without any feeling, so Sizer is so confused. Huh. Sizer left in disgrace, thinking that it couldn't master the skills taught by Gary. Everyone come in. After upgrading a few Pokemon, Gary came to the teleporter at the Pokemon Center and called Professor Oak's laboratory. Gary, you caught a different colored Venonat. You're really lucky. When the call was connected, Professor Oak talked about Venonat. In the morning, Professor Oak was preparing to make lunch, but he saw a Pokeball being sent from the teleporter. Seeing that it was sent by Gary, he curiously opened it and looked at it. When he saw Flash Venonat, he was immediately amazed at his grandson's luck. For ordinary trainers, it is rare enough to catch a different colored Pokemon in their lifetime, but Gary actually caught two. Not bad. Gary said, do you plan to breed this Venonat? Just now, Professor Oak tested the Venonat. From the data collected so far, the potential of this Venonat is normal. Professor Oak has tested all the Pokemon that Gary has, and all of them have potential above the gym level. Suddenly, a Pokemon with potential below the gym level seems out of place. Not planning to do it for now, Gary captured Venonat just to complete the task issued by the system. After all, as a trainer, it doesn't matter if he captures more Pokemon. He can just keep them as pets. Then I'll take care of Venonat for you temporarily and see what color Venonat will become when it evolves into Venomoth. Professor Oak said, even if it's a bother for you, Grandpa, please help me recover Growlithe and EV. By the way, Exeggutor also needs to recover. Gary said, in order to challenge the Fuchsia Gym, Gary exchanged Sizer and Alakazam. Now that the challenge is over, he still needs to exchange Growlithe and EV back. No problem. Professor Oak went to the backyard of the laboratory to get the Pokemon that Gary needed. Gary teleported Alakazam, abandoned Monkey and Sizer, and brought Growlithe, EV, and Exeggutor with him. After bringing Exeggutor back, Gary looked at Exeggutor's level. Exeggutor has also grown in Professor Oak's laboratory and is currently level 36 and has awakened the Grass-type recovery skill Synthesis. Gary also taught Exeggutor the skill Sludge Bomb and decided to keep Exeggutor with him for a while and then send Exeggutor back after taming the Iron Rhino. The next day, Gary and Sabrina left Fuchsia City and came to the wilderness area on the outskirts of Fuchsia City, where there is the famous Safari Zone. The wilderness area was originally a wild area. Because too many Pokemon were captured here before, causing the ecological system to be destroyed. It was protected, but later, due to excessive protection, the Pokemon reproduction rate was rampant, and there was a fear that too many Pokemon would destroy the ecology here again. So the Pokemon Alliance set up the Safari Zone. In the Safari Zone, it is forbidden to capture Pokemon by means of fighting. You can only use the Safari Ball provided by the Safari Zone to capture. Each time you need to pay 15,000 yuan to get 30 Safari Balls. After using the Safari Balls, you have to leave the Safari Zone. If you want to continue capturing, you need to pay another 15,000 yuan. Arrived in front of the Safari Zone office. Gary and Sabrina went forward and knocked on the door. Soon, an elderly cowboy opened the door. This cowboy is the administrator of the Safari Zone. Hello, I'm the administrator of the Safari Zone, Tommy. Tommy introduced himself, but it was obvious that he was introducing himself to Sabrina. Don't look at this Tommy as an old man, a real old pervert. Even a little Stephanie like Misty is not spared. If he is not old, I don't know how many girls he would have harmed. Mr. Tommy, we are here to capture Pokemon in the Safari Zone. Gary explained his purpose. I understand. You are not allowed to attack Pokemon in the Safari Zone. You can only capture them with Safari Balls. Do you understand? Tommy said, I understand. Are both of you going to go in and catch Pokemon? Yes. It's 30,000 in total. How are you going to pay? By credit card. Gary paid 30,000 by credit card, and then he and Sabrina each received 30 Safari Balls and entered the Safari Zone. Chapter 82. Searching for the ironclad rhino. Enter the Safari Zone. The first thing you see is a patch of green grass, and you can see many Pokemon walking on the grass. These Pokemon also notice Gary and Sabrina, but they all look like they didn't care about the contest condition. The Safari Zone has existed for many years, and the Pokemon living here also know the rules of the Safari Zone. If a Pokemon wants to go with a trainer, there is no need to struggle. Just be captured by the Pokeball. In fact, most Pokemon in the Safari Zone hope to be captured, because people who can come here to capture Pokemon have some money at home, follow humans, and eat and drink well. Over time, these Pokemon are also very smart and have developed the ability to observe words and expressions and know what kind of people look rich and what kind of people are poor. And the Pokemon here basically don't welcome trainers because trainers use Pokemon to fight. Although Pokemon can fight, it doesn't mean they are willing to fight. After all, fighting will get hurt. Gary and Sabrina were dressed like trainers, so these Pokemon were not enthusiastic when they saw them. Moo! 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 The mooing continued all day, and the ground began to shake. A group of Tauros came from afar and ran wildly on the grass. Oh, Tauros! Gary was very surprised. He didn't expect to meet Tauros so soon after entering the Safari Zone. In the first version, Tauros with the Intimidate ability was the god of the version because there was no distinction between physical attack and special attack in the first generation, and Intimidate was a TO level ability. In addition, Tauros speed species strength was 110, and physical attack species strength was 100, which was definitely an excellent value in the first version. Moo! When these Tauros saw Gary and Sabrina, they still had no intention of stopping and kept rushing forward. Gary and Sabrina immediately made way. As they passed by, the Tauros glanced at them. Their eyes seemed to be filled with a hint of expectation. However, the Tauros just looked at them and continued to run straight ahead. These Tauros were looking at us just now. Did you see that, Sabrina? Gary asked. Yes, they want to be captured by us, Sabrina said. Gary was shocked. He knew that there were Pokemon here who wanted to be captured, but he didn't expect these Tauros to be so proactive. Thinking about it carefully, every time Ash wanted to capture other Pokemon, these Tauros would suddenly rush over and block Ash's Safari Ball. Every time it was a coincidence. It was obvious that the Tauros did it on purpose. It seems that Ash was able to capture 30 Tauros because these Tauros wanted to be captured, so they kept wandering around Ash. Then we have to be careful when we capture Pokemon, Gary reminded. These Tauros were left to Ash to capture, as he had no interest in Tauros. Gary and Sabrina continued to walk deeper into the grassland of the Safari Zone. It didn't take long for Gary to find his target Pokemon in just a quarter of an hour. On the grass, the armored rhinoceros covered in gray armor was walking, occasionally lowering its head to eat a few bites of grass. LV-20 Armored Rhinoceros / Ordinary. Gary, look, it's an armored rhinoceros. Sabrina pointed at the armored rhinoceros and said she knew that Gary was going to capture the armored rhinoceros. This one is not very good. Gary shook his head slightly. The armored rhinoceros with ordinary potential could not evolve into Rhydon and had no value as a breeder. Rhydon can only evolve to Rhydon at level 42. For Pokemon with normal potential, it can only grow to level 30 at most, and for Pokemon with elite potential, it can only grow to level 40, which is 2 levels short of the evolution level requirement. Sabrina didn't say anything. After traveling with Gary for so long, Sabrina found that Gary's judgment of Pokemon's potential was very accurate, and he could almost determine the potential of a Pokemon at a glance. Sabrina attributed Gary's sharp eyesight to Professor Oak. After all, Gary grew up with Professor Oak and knew Pokemon very well. Let's go and talk to Rhydon. Gary said, although this Rhydon has low potential, it doesn't mean that this Rhydon doesn't know other Rhydons. Hello, Rhydon. Gary stepped forward and greeted him. Rhydon just glanced at Gary, ignored him, and continued to walk slowly. Seeing that the armored rhino ignored him, Gary didn't care. He took out 2 green energy cubes and put them in front of the armored rhino. The armored rhino stopped and looked at the energy cubes in front of him. Although he didn't know what they were, the armored rhino could smell that the energy cubes had a very fragrant smell. Come and try it. Gary handed the energy cubes to the armored rhino. The armored rhino was not polite and ate it directly, because many people who came here would use food to seduce the Pokemon here to facilitate the capture. Roar! After the energy cubes were eaten, the armored rhino's pupils widened a lot. It was the first time for it to eat such delicious food. Do you want more? Gary asked. Roar! The armored rhino nodded. Such a small amount of energy cubes was not enough to satisfy his appetite. Gary took 2 more energy cubes for the armored rhino to eat. Obviously, such a small amount of food was still not enough. Iron Rhino, if you still want it, you have to do me a favor. Gary said, Roar! Food can make a cow work, and the Iron Rhino's indifferent attitude just now disappeared, turning into a real cow licking. The favor I want you to do for me is very simple. Help me meet other Iron Rhino here, and I will give you 2 energy cubes for each one I meet. Gary said, Roar! The Iron Rhino looked up and thought for a while, agreed to Gary's conditions, and turned his body sideways to Gary. Do you mean for me to sit on it? Gary asked. Roar! The Iron Rhino nodded. The Iron Rhino can be ridden. Because of its wide body, the riding process is very stable, and even many regions will hold Iron Rhino races. Gary and Sabrina sat on the Iron Rhino. The Iron Rhino ran at a very uniform speed, with almost no bumps. The edges and corners of its armor can be used as handles, and it is also very stable to sit on. Moo! Moo! Soon after, a group of Tauros rushed over and passed by here deliberately. However, these Tauros found that Gary and Sabrina were on the armored rhino, and they immediately showed disappointment, turned around and left here quickly. Not long after, the armored rhino carried Gary and Sabrina to a forest where there was an armored rhino. LV-21 Armored Rhino / Ordinary. This armored rhino also has ordinary potential, and Gary will definitely not tame it. Let's find the next one. Gary said, Chapter 83. Rhydon Roar. The armored rhino nodded, indicating that it was okay, and took the energy cube first. Gary also took out 2 energy cubes for the armored rhino to eat as agreed. After the armored rhino ate the energy cube, it continued to take Gary and Sabrina to find the armored rhino. They soon came to the rock region. Along the way, they also encountered 2 armored rhinos. Unfortunately, they were ordinary and elite potential, and they were definitely not subdued. Roar! After finding more than a dozen armored rhinos, the armored rhino suddenly stopped. What's wrong? Gary asked in confusion. The armored rhino said that there are no other armored rhinos here. Sabrina said. Gary put his hope for Rhydon in the Safari Zone, but there were only a dozen armored rhinos in the Safari Zone, which was really a small number. Gary was still a little unwilling to give up and asked tentatively, "Then is there a Rhydon nearby?" "Roar, there is one," said the armored rhino. "Why didn't you tell me earlier that there was a Rhydon?" Gary was speechless. If he had known there was a Rhydon, why would he look for the Rhydon? Rhydon. You said you wanted to find the Rhydon, and you didn't ask if there was a Rhydon. What does it have to do with me? Then please take us to find Rhydon, Gary said, taking out 3 energy cubes and handing them to the Rhydon. The Rhydon was not petty. After eating the energy cubes, he took Gary and the others to the Rhydon activity area. Gary was lucky. Rhydon was active outside. Seeing Gary and Sabrina riding the Rhydon, Rhydon didn't care and just basked in the sun. LV-45 Rhydon / Quasi-Elite. Rhydon with Quasi-Elite potential. Gary decided to capture this Rhydon. After traveling for so long, it was the first time for Gary to capture such a high-level wild Pokémon. Gary jumped off the back of the Iron Rhino, walked to Rhydon, and said, "Rhydon, how about being my Pokémon?" Rhydon opened his eyes, looked at Gary, and shook his head with disdain. "Don't rush to refuse. Come with me. I can help you become stronger. It must be boring for you to stay here alone," Gary said. Rhydon was surprised when he heard Gary's words and didn't understand how Gary knew that he would feel bored. Gary thought so because of Rhydon's level. This Rhydon's level is as high as 45. There are almost few who can upgrade to level 45 in the Safari Zone. In addition, there is no suitable rival here. If Rhydon wants to upgrade to level 45, it can only do it through diligent training. In particular, there are a lot of rubble nearby. I think these rubble are the product of Rhydon's training. Roar! Rhydon made a low growl. It asks you why it believes you. Sabrina helped translate. You can follow me first and fight outside. If I win, you will be my Pokémon. If you lose, I can give you a protector. Gary said, Rhydon. Roar? It asked you what a protector is. Sabrina said, Gary, Pokémon that need to evolve with evolutionary items. In the wild, they don't know that they have an evolutionary stage. Protector is a prop specially developed by humans for Rhydon. When you wear it, you can evolve into a super iron Tyrannosaurus. Gary introduced. Roar! Rhydon was shocked, hearing that he could evolve. He immediately agreed to Gary's request. This wild Rhydon does not reject evolution. Evolution means becoming stronger. This deal is not a loss for Rhydon. Okay, then come in. Gary took out a Safari Ball and threw at Rhydon. Rhydon did not dodge at all. After the Safari Ball hit, it opened and took it in. The Safari Ball shook on the ground 3 times and then stopped shaking. According to the tasks issued by the system, the 6 Pokémon of the Green Team have all been gathered. All that is left is to evolve Pidgeotto into Pidgeot and Growlithe into Arcanine, and the task will be completed. Sabrina, do you have any other Pokémon to capture? Gary asked. I came to the Safari Zone to capture Rhydon, but I didn't expect there was a Rhydon here, which saved Gary the trouble of breeding. As for the battle with Rhydon outside, it is not easy to win. Blastoise can kill Rhydon in 1 Hydro Pump. Rhydon was also protected too well in the hunting area, and he didn't know that people were evil at all. Now that he has been captured, how can he run away? No, there are no Pokemon I want to capture here. Let's go. Sabrina said, Okay, let's go. Gary didn't persuade much. There are some rare Pokemon in the Safari Zone, but none of them have psychic attributes, which Sabrina doesn't like. There's a Dragonair and a Dratini in Dragon Valley, and they are mother and son, but the Safari Zone is not considered wild, and the rare Pokemon here are not allowed to be caught. Even if Dragonair and Dratini are caught, the Pokemon Alliance will ask them to release them. Moreover, this Dragonair has lived for decades and has not evolved into Dragonite. Its potential should only be Quasi-Elite, which should be level 50. If Gary's Pokemon attack together, he has a chance to defeat them, but fighting is not allowed in the Safari Zone. Gary will not be wanted for 2 Quasi-God Pokemon. Although Dragonite is a Quasi-God, it is too weak among Quasi-Gods, far inferior to Garchomp and Salamence. Back to the reception hall of the Safari Zone. You only captured 1 Pokemon. When the Safari Ball passed through the conveyor belt machine, only 1 Poke Ball showed transmission, and the rest of the Pokemon were in the box, which surprised Tommy. Ordinary people would not be satisfied if they did not use up all the 30 Safari Balls. We don't need many Pokemon, just capture 1. Gary said, "Then why don't you capture a few more Pokémon, beautiful lady?" Tommy asked. "There are no Pokémon I want in there," Sabrina replied coldly. Tommy was surprised. He didn't expect Sabrina to not even like any Pokémon in the Safari Zone. Then, Gary and Sabrina came to the teleporter and called Professor Oak. "Gary, why are you calling me again?" Professor Oak asked. During this period, Gary contacted Professor Oak a little too frequently, which made Professor Oak a little uncomfortable. "Grandpa, I captured a Rhydon in the Safari Zone and just teleported it to you. I need you to teleport it to me." Gary said, "Rhydon, that's a very powerful Pokémon." Professor Oak exclaimed. Chapter 84. Green Team gathers its okay. Gary didn't fight with Rhydon, but just persuaded Rhydon in advance with his words. They still had to continue fighting later. "Which Pokémon are you going to send over?" Professor Oak asked. "Crobat." Gary said, "Crobat, your Golbat has evolved." "Yes." "Okay, I just want to study how loud the sound of Crobat's wings can be when it is flying. Please send it over quickly." So, Gary sent Crobat to Professor Oak's laboratory and got Rhydon from Professor Oak. Gary picked up the Safari Ball and took a look at Rhydon's attributes first. Pokémon, Rhydon attribute. Ground, rock level. 45 potential. Quasi-lead ability. Lightning Rod. Attracts electric type moves to itself. Does not take damage, but increases special attack. Skills. Tackle, Bulldoze, Smackdown, Horn Attack, Stomp, Rock Critical Hit, Drill Run, Takedown, Hammer. Intimacy. 115. Max value 255. Why is it a Lightning Rod ability? This Rhydon has good data in all aspects, but the ability is a bit weak. Ground Pokemon itself is immune to electric-type moves. After the Lightning Rod absorbs electricity, it can enhance special attack. Rhydon is a physical attack-type fighter with extremely low special attack ability. Fortunately, the Pokemon Company was able to develop Ability Capsule later, so there is no need to worry too much about this ability. "Sabrina, do you want to watch my fight with Rhydon?" Gary asked. "No, you guys fight. I need to take care of Eevee," Sabrina said. Sabrina's Eevee has now reached level 26. Because she wants Eevee to evolve into a sun Pokemon, Sabrina will keep an eye on Eevee during the day. "Okay, I'll go out then." Gary waved his hand, went outside the Safari Zone, found an open space, and released Rhydon. Roar! Rhydon looked at the surrounding environment, then looked at Gary, signaling Gary to release the Pokemon quickly. "Don't worry, my strength won't let you down." Gary took the Pokemon on his belt and threw it out gently. "Great! Kami!" Blastoise appeared from the Pokeball. Roar! Rhydon immediately became alert. Although it had never fought with Blastoise before, it also felt the thick water vapor on Blastoise's body. It must be a water Pokemon. A Pokemon that can grow to level 45 in the wild has naturally encountered Pokemon that restrain it and knows what its weaknesses are. "Rhydon, do you still want to fight?" Gary asked. Roar! Rhydon roared. How could he be afraid of fighting just because rival restrained him? A piece of rock condensed in front of Rhydon, and then Rhydon raised the rock with one hand and threw it at Blastoise. Flash Cannon. Blastoise's two barrels shot out two silver beams, instantly defeating the rock and shooting at Rhydon, with excellent results, but Rhydon still relied on his super high physical defense to resist the damage. Roar! Rhydon roared, and the drill on his forehead rapid spin up, rushing straight at him. "You are brave, but it's a pity that this won't work." Gary praised secretly, and then ordered, "Hydro Pump." Kami. Bang! Bang! Blastoise's two barrels fired hydro pumps, and two water jets burst out, instantly forcing Rhydon back and flying more than 10 meters away before stopping. After being hit by the water bubble, Rhydon instantly lost consciousness. Not counting the 4 times weak water-type moves, the special defense is also very low, and water-type Pokemon is Rhydon's biggest nemesis. In the battle between the two sides, the scales of victory were tilted towards Blastoise from the beginning. Blastoise LV 41-42. Blastoise's level was also increased by 1 level at this moment. "Come in." Gary took Blastoise and Rhydon back and came to the lobby of the Safari Zone. Assist's treatment equipment here treated Rhydon. After that, He came outside and released Rhydon. Roar! After a battle, Rhydon also kept his promise and agreed to become Gary's Pokémon. I'll take good care of you in the future. You can carry this first. Gary took out the Soothe Bell. Rhydon didn't know what this thing was, so he followed Gary's instructions and put Soothe Bell into the carrying space. Then, Gary put his palm on Rhydon and taught him Thunderbolt, Stone Edge, and Mega Kick. Roar! Rhydon was shocked to suddenly master 3 new skills, and his eyes were full of disbelief. I said I would help you become stronger. Now you believe it. Gary smiled. Roar! Rhydon nodded frantically. If you had said you had this ability earlier, would you still have to fight? Although Rhydon was taught 3 skills, Thunderbolt was not very useful because it was a special attack skill. Even if Rhydon used it, the damage it caused was not great. However, Rhydon's skill pool is very wide. He can learn skills of reverse attributes, and even Hydro Pump, Ice Punch, Blizzard, and other skills can be mastered. Work hard, and I will let you evolve after a while. Gary said. Originally, Gary wanted to quickly evolve Rhydon into a Super Iron Tyrannosaurus, but he remembered that the task released by the system required him to capture and breed Rhydon, and it didn't say that it was a Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. If it evolved early, the task would be considered unfinished, and he would have to get new Rhydon. So before the task was completed, Gary was not in a hurry to evolve Rhydon. Roar! Rhydon nodded, indicating that he would definitely work hard to train. Hee, come in and rest. Gary smiled and took Rhydon back to the Pokeball. Next, it's Pidgeotto's turn. The green team only had Arcanine and Pidgeot left. Growlithe can evolve into Arcanine at any time. Pidgeotto is currently level 32, 4 levels away from the evolution level. Before challenging the Crimson Gym, Gary planned to breed the Pokemon he had, especially Pidgeotto, Growlithe, and Eevee. Growlithe and Eevee were too far behind the team in level, so they had to be trained strictly. A week later, Gary and Sabrina came to Jinha City. Jinha City is a small city in Kanto region, surrounded by dense forests, which is very suitable for bug-type Pokemon to live. Gary and Sabrina can come here because there is a gym in Jinha City. In a week, Gary's Pokemon have grown to a certain extent. Blastoise LV 42-43, Exeggutor LV 36-38, Pidgeotto LV 32-33, Growlithe LV 25-30. Evel Coxcument vis minus Goldencument. Chapter 85. Collective Improvement of Strength. Gary, when do you plan to challenge the gym? Sabrina asked Gary when he planned to challenge the gym when they arrived at the Pokemon Center. Gary has collected 7 badges so far. As long as he gets 1 more badge, he will be eligible to participate in the Indigo Plateau Conference. No hurry. Let's train for a while first. Gary said. It's not that Gary wants to train, but Gary is particularly concerned about the movements in Dasha Valley. According to the original plot, ancient Pokemon survived underground in Dasha Valley. Gary planned to capture Aerodactyl, but he might not be able to find it now, because those ancient Pokemon were buried underground. The surface was very thick, and it was difficult to find the explosion site under normal circumstances. However, the Rocket Trio accidentally found the best explosion site and blew out a passage underground. So Gary wanted to wait here until Ash and the others arrived at Dasha Valley, and then he would go there. There are several roads leading to Dasha Valley, and Dasha Valley can also be reached from Jinha City. Okay, Sabrina had no objection. She also wanted to train Eevee and evolve Eevee into a Sun Pokemon as soon as possible. 10 days of special training in Jinha City. The Pokemon on hand have grown a lot. Blastoise LV 43-44, Exeggutor LV 38-39, Growlithe LV 30-31, Pidgeotto LV 33-35, Eevee LV 30-32, Rhydon LV 45-46. All Pokemon have grown. It can be seen that the potential is also related to the growth rate of Pokemon level. Blastoise with champion potential is different. It can basically upgrade 1 level in 7 days. Rhydon with quasi-elite potential only upgrades 1 level in half a month. The upgrade speed of Pokémon with quasi-elite potential is slightly sluggish after level 30, and it is even more obvious after level 40. Growlithe, come here. Gary waved at Growlithe, who was training. Woof! Growlithe immediately ran over and stuck out his tongue at Gary, looking silly. It's time for you to evolve. Gary said, Woof! Emoticon, non croyant pas ses yeux. Oof! Growlithe jumped up happily. It had waited for a long time to evolve. It was finally no longer the smallest one in the team. Here, this is the evolution stone. Gary took out the top qualifier stone he had prepared before and handed it to Growlithe. Growlithe held the top quality fire stone in his mouth. The next moment, a hot breath burst out from the kitey dog, and the whole body radiated incandescent light. Growlithe's body grew rapidly in the light of evolution. It was very tall and reached Gary's height, a head taller than Gary. The light of evolution faded, and Arcanine appeared with a majestic posture. It had fluffy flaxen mane, tiger-like hair on its body, hair around its feet, and a long tail. When running, its body seemed to merge with the wind. It was worthy of being the most contested land mount. Although Arcanine's potential was a little low, Gary still liked it very much. After all, he liked Arcanine very much in his previous life. Gary also took a look at the attributes of Arcanine after evolution. Pokémon, Arcanine, Attribute, Fire, Level, 31, Potential, Gym, Ability, Intimidate, Intimidate rival when appearing, make it retreat, and reduce rival's attack. Skills, Leer, Ember, Odor Sleuth, Flame Wheel, Agility, Crunch, Flamethrower, Extreme Speed. Intimacy, 255, Full Value 255. Not bad, the Extreme Speed skill has been awakened. Gary nodded with satisfaction. After using the top quality evolution stone, Arcanine's potential has only reached the gym. Perhaps because of its low potential, it has awakened fewer skills during the Growlithe period. Gary also taught Arcanine the Solar skill, allowing it to have the skills to deal with water, ground, and rock Pokémon. Pidgeotto, come here. Growlithe has evolved, and it's Pidgeotto's turn next. Beat! Pidgeotto flew over immediately. Pidgeotto knew that he could evolve, but not by evolution stone, but Gary called it over, and Pidgeotto thought it might be teaching him new skills. Gary reached out and placed his hand on Pidgeotto's soft feathers, and used a mid-level rare candy on it. Pidgeotto LV 35-36. The level was immediately increased by 1 level. Pidgeotto immediately felt the cells in his body bursting with powerful energy, and the light of evolution shone all over his body. His body began to grow, and soon reached Gary's height. His body was more than twice as big as before, and the feathers on his head became longer, almost touching his tail feathers. When the light of evolution faded, a majestic Pidgeot appeared in front of Gary. Ding! Mission completed. Rewards have been sent to the space backpack. The surrounding Pokémon, except Blastoise, were shocked because other Pokémon evolved mostly by props, and Pidgeotto evolved just by being touched by Gary, which was too scary. Among the Pokémon present, only Blastoise had experienced it once, and it seemed very calm. Gary touched Pidgeot's wings and checked the attributes after evolution. Pokémon, Pidgeot attribute, normal, flying level, 36 potential, quasi-elite ability, sharp eyes. Thanks to sharp eyes, the hit rate will not be reduced. Skills, tackle, sand attack, gust, quick attack, twister, feather dance, wing attack, heat wave. Intimacy, 255, max value, 255, carried items. Sooth Bell, not bad. It actually awakened the heat wave skill. Pidgeot can awaken the heat wave skill, but it all depends on luck. The heat wave skill is very helpful for Mega Pidgeot. Let's improve the potential. Pidgeot has a Mega Evolution form after all. Gary consumes a Bronze Crown to increase its potential to Elite. Now there are 1 Bronze Crown, 1 Silver Crown, and 1 Gold Bottle Cap, each for items that increase the potential of Pokémon. Gold Bottle Cap can make Pokémon with champion potential reach the quasi-legendary level. Gary is thinking about whether to use it directly on Blastoise. Gold Bottle Cap can also be used on Pokémon with low potential, but the cost performance is too low. Gary only has one Pokemon with champion potential, Blastoise. After hesitating for a moment, Gary walked to Blastoise, put his hand on his shoulder, and used the gold bottle cap in the space backpack to make Blastoise's potential reach the quasi-legendary level. Gary kept the remaining bronze crown and silver crown for the time being. Arcanine, Pidgeot, get familiar with your new body in the afternoon. I will use you two to challenge the gym tomorrow. Gary said, Pidgeot, woof. Pidgeot and Arcanine nodded. They must adapt to their new body in the afternoon. After all, their body size has become larger and their abilities in all aspects have been strengthened. Chapter 86, Rivertown Gym, Warrior Boy the next day. Gary and Sabrina came to the door of the Jinha City Gym together. Ding, mission released. Get the Jinha Gym badge/rewards. Intermediate rare Candy X10, Signal Beam permanent skill learning device, top quality silver powder, bug type skill power increased by 50%. X1, the system released the mission. The Jinha Gym is owned by a bug type gym owner. Judging from the rewards, this gym owner is quite powerful. The two pressed the insect-shaped doorbell at the door. After a while, someone came to open the door. Yes, it's you. The person who came to open the door was a boy who was normal to Gary, and he was a sturdy little fat boy. You are a warrior, Gary said in surprise. The little fat boy in front of him was none other than the insect-catching boy warrior that Gary met when he first entered the Chompan Forest. You are Gary. The warrior also called out Gary's name. Why are you here? Gary asked in confusion. Chompan Forest is far away from Jinha City, and this guy actually ran here. I was defeated by the 4 trainers from your pallet town. So, I went out to train and then came here and worshipped the gym owner as my teacher. The warrior said. After being defeated by the 4 rookie trainers from Pallet Town in a row, the warrior also had self-esteem. After being defeated by Ash, he planned to imitate the trainers from Pallet Town and embark on a journey. Along the way, the warrior deeply felt his own weakness. There were far more trainers stronger than him than the 4 from Pallet Town, which also hit the warrior hard. Finally, when he came to Jinha City, he knew that the gym owner of Jinha Gym was a bug-type Pokemon trainer. So the warrior came here to worship. Is that so? Then please take me in. I want to challenge the gym, Gary said. As a gym apprentice, the warrior knew his mission and took Gary and Sabrina into the gym. My master is very strong. You have to be careful, the warrior reminded. Really? That's really worth looking forward to, Gary Solation responded. Seeing Gary so calm, the warrior didn't say much. The gym battle later would make Gary regret it. The warrior didn't know that Gary's current strength was no longer comparable to that of the past. The warrior naturally knew that Gary had become stronger, but he didn't think about how strong Gary could become. Soon, the warrior brought the two to the support ground in the gym, where a middle-aged man was sitting on a chair at the end. Master, someone is here to challenge the gym, the warrior said respectfully. I know, you can go down, the middle-aged man said in a deep voice. Yes. The warrior immediately stepped aside to watch. Sabrina also stepped aside, leaving the venue to Gary and the gym owner. The gym owner stood up from the chair, walked to the command area, and introduced, My name is Takeo, and I am the gym owner of Jinha Gym. Takeo? Gary glanced at the exhibition area of the gym. The warrior also had the surname Takeo. The key point was that Takeo and the warrior looked very similar, just like a pair of father and son. Are you two sure there is nothing wrong with each other? My name is Gary from Pallet Town, Gary said. The rules of the Jinha Gym are 3 versus 3. If there is no problem, we can start, Takeo said. No problem, we can start now. Takeo nodded and took out a Pokeball and threw it. Go, Beedrill. Great. A 1-meter-tall bumblebee appeared, and its twine needle made people shudder. If you get stabbed by this twine needle, you're done. LV30 Beedrill/Gym level 30. The level can only be said to be normal, but Takeo saw that Gary was young, so the Pokemon he sent out was not strong. Your first gym battle, do well, Gary said to the Pokeball in his hand, and then threw it out. Great. A majestic Arcanine appeared. What? Arcanine! The warrior was shocked. As an apprentice of the Jinha Gym, The warrior naturally knew that fire-type Pokémon were very restrained by his own gym, and Arcanine was also a very rare Pokémon, which was basically impossible to catch. Takeo was also stunned when he saw Arcanine. Being able to own Arcanine showed that Gary's identity was not simple. Flamethrower. Gary launched an attack directly. Arcanine's body was surging with flames, and a blazing fire gushed out of his mouth, turning into a fire dragon and rushing towards Beedrill. Rapidly rise. Beedrill quickly rose to a higher altitude to avoid the flames. However, Arcanine would not give Beedrill a chance to escape. Fireballs were ejected one after another and followed closely. Beedrill's speed was not fast, and he was hit by a fireball after dodging a few times. What? Beedrill was killed in one hit. The warrior was shocked. He knew how powerful Takeo's Beedrill was, but he didn't expect that he was not a match for him. Beedrill was limited by its own species' strength, so its strength was not strong, and there was no outstanding point on its body, but not every Beedrill was the same as Itaki's. Besides, Takeo knew that he was a bug-type gym, and he didn't consider letting Beedrill learn Double Team or Agility. It would be very passive when encountering fire Pokémon, and there was no chance to approach rival. This Arcanine is very strong, and normal bug-type Pokémon is not rival. Takeo thought to himself. After taking back the defeated Beedrill, Takeo threw the second Pokeball. Great! A green shadow appeared on the field. LV-35 Scyther / Quasi-Elite. The second Pokemon sent by Takeo was Scyther. It looked quite strong, but it was a pity that it had not evolved. If it had evolved, it would be more afraid of fire skills. Flamethrower. Gary ordered. Arcanine spit up flames at Scyther. Use Double Team after you dodge, Takeo ordered. Scyther's dual wing bead on his back spread out, his wings vibrated, and he dodged the flames with a flash, while pulling out shadow clones and quickly approaching Arcanine. Arcanine, use extreme speed. Gary ordered. Ouch! Arcanine took a deep breath through his nose, and then quickly rushed in one direction, and there was a Scyther in front of him. No, use Cross Chop. Takeo Alliance shouted. All the Scythers made slashing movements. Bang! However, the next moment, with the sound of tackle, all the clones around disappeared, and Arcanine and the Scyther were seen tackled together, and both were bounced away by the collision force. But Arcanine, who had landed, sprayed out a mouthful of flames, and the Scyther, who was about to land, vibrated his wings and flew up to soaring in the sky to avoid the deadly flames. Although Scyther is not good at flying, it does not mean that they cannot fly. They just cannot fly for a long time. Flame Wheel. Gary ordered. Chapter 87. Collect all 8 badges, ouch. Arcanine howled, and flames burst out from his flaxen hair. The flames lingered around his body, completely covering Arcanine, turning him into a flaming beast. The next second, Arcanine rushed towards Scyther. Air Slash. Takeo didn't intend to let Scyther fight Arcanine. That was fire, and Scyther would be courting death if he rushed forward. Ja! Scyther swung his sickle, and Air Slash flew over. Arcanine moved flexibly, dodging all the air slashes, and then accelerated. Cross Chop. Takeo was helpless. The opponent was close to his face, and he had no choice but to fight back. Ja! Scyther rushed towards Arcanine, who was covered in flames, like a moth to a flame. Bang! The two sides collided, and the flames on Arcanine instantly spread to Scyther. Ja! Scyther screamed in pain, retreated quickly, and used the sickle to extinguish the flames on his body. But Arcanine would not give Scyther a chance. A jet of fire shot out, instantly engulfing Scyther. The fire whistled past, and Scyther's body was charred and fell to the ground. Although Scyther knew how to double team, it was useless to Arcanine, who had mastered Odor Sleuth, because double team had no smell. For Pokémon with a keen sense of smell, double team had no confusing effect in front of them. Of course, this also requires training to achieve. Arcanine took down 2 Pokémon of Takeo, and now Takeo only had the last Pokémon left. Has Gary become so strong? Seeing Scyther defeated, the warrior was shocked. The warrior knew that Gary was stronger than before, but he didn't expect that he was so much stronger. This either was not weak among Takeo's Pokémon. How many badges do you have? Takeo asked suddenly. Although a little surprised, Gary still responded truthfully. 7. Takeo was embarrassed. His gym challenge privilege required the challenger to have 2 badges, but Gary actually had 7 badges. No wonder he was so powerful. It only takes 8 badges to participate in the Indigo Plateau Conference. So his own gym became Gary's last goal. In theory, with so many badges, he should challenge a stronger gym. But many trainers know that they're not strong enough, so they specifically look for a weak gym to challenge, so that they can successfully collect 8 badges and participate in the Indigo Plateau Conference. No wonder it is so strong. Then my last Pokemon, is it? Go, Pinsir! Takeo sent out the last Pokemon. Great! Cairo, LV35, Pinsir/Gym. It must be said that Takeo is still quite powerful, stronger than the gym leaders that Gary has challenged, and the 3 Pokemon he sent out are also very powerful. Unfortunately, there is nothing you can do when you encounter a fire Pokemon. Flamethrower, Gary continued to order. Arcanine spit up flames at Pinsir, but Pinsir didn't dodge and went directly into the ground with Dig. He actually knew how to dig. Gary was shocked. This Dig is a ground Pokemon, and Pinsir was born with this Dig. Moreover, Arcanine didn't have any means to deal with Dig, so it was really not easy to deal with. Arcanine, wrap yourself in flames. Upon hearing this, Arcanine's body burst into flames, covering his entire body. Bang! The ground under Arcanine shattered, and Pinsir broke out of the ground. The huge horns wanted to vice grip Arcanine, but facing the flames on his body, Pinsir just pushed Arcanine out. Arcanine, who was thrown out, immediately stood up and spit up flames at Pinsir, but Pinsir went underground again to avoid the flames. Gary's frown suddenly relaxed, and he immediately ordered, Arcanine, use agility to run around the field. Arcanine immediately followed Gary's instructions and ran around the field at high speed. Pinsir, who was sneaking on the ground, was also confused. Although he could feel the vibration on the surface, Arcanine ran too fast, and Pinsir could not catch up. Pinsir, stay underground and don't chase. Let Arcanine run. Takeo ordered. Hearing Takeo's order, Gary was delighted. After waiting for Arcanine to run to the closest distance to the cave entrance, he immediately shouted, Now, use the most powerful flamethrower on the cave entrance. The running Arcanine turned suddenly and ran quickly to the cave entrance. The flame energy in his body surged and sprayed out at once. Not good. Pinsir, get out of the ground quickly. Takeo said in panic. Bang! A piece of ground on the field broke, and Pinsir's big horn emerged first. However, just when Pinsir's head emerged, a column of flames shot up into the sky and enveloped Pinsir. What? Why is the flame so powerful? Takeo asked in confusion. The underground was also dug by Pinsir, so the speed of the flame chasing should not be so fast. Normally, the speed of the flame chasing is not that fast, but Arcanine is different. When Arcanine runs, the flame energy in his body will be circulated and generate more flame energy. At this time, using flamethrower, because there is too much energy in his body, the ejected flame will be more powerful. Although Gary just let Arcanine run around the field, he is also accumulating energy. People who don't know Arcanine naturally don't know this. Arcanine ended after all the flame energy in his body was ejected, and the column of flames from the hole also dissipated. Bang! The charred Pinsir fell to the ground, his eyes spinning in circles, and all 3 Pokemon were defeated. Master, the warrior couldn't accept it. He wanted to see Gary make a fool of himself, but he didn't expect that his master was beaten by Gary. Arcanine, well done. Gary encouraged. Woof! Arcanine looked very proud. There were just 3 bugs. There was no need for Brother Eagle to take action. I could defeat them all. The battle was over. Takeo came to Ash and took out the gym badge. This is the light green badge. It's yours now. Thank you. Gary politely took the badge. Ding. Mission completed. Rewards have been distributed to the space backpack. With the light green badge, Gary has collected 8 badges and is eligible to participate in the Indigo Plateau Conference. Ding! Mission release. Participate in the Indigo Plateau Conference and win the championship/rewards. Low-level rare candy X10, intermediate rare candy X10, high-level rare candy X10, bronze crown X1, silver crown X1, gold bottle cap X1. The system suddenly released a mission, which stunned Gary. Winning the first place in the Indigo Plateau Conference will get so many rewards, and you must win the championship. Gary and Sabrina also left the Jinna Gym and returned to the Pokémon Center to rest. The two will leave Jinna City tomorrow. Chapter 88, Dasha Valley. Gary, you have collected 8 badges. Do you plan to continue traveling? Sabrina asked on the way back to the Pokémon Center. I plan to continue traveling for a while, and if I encounter a gym, I will challenge it. Gary said, okay. After listening to this, Sabrina nodded slightly, and it can be seen that she is in a much better mood. If Gary ends the trip, Sabrina has no good excuse to continue to follow Gary. She can stay, but Sabrina is a Stephanie, and it is not easy to ask. Now that Gary said he wanted to continue traveling, Sabrina naturally didn't need to say anything. Just follow him. Where are you going next? Sabrina asked. Let's go to Dasha Valley to have a look. I heard that ancient Pokémon fossils can be excavated. Gary said, Dasha Valley, ancient Pokémon fossils. This is the first time Sabrina has heard about Dasha Valley. Yeah, there's nothing to do anyway, just go and have a look. Okay, I don't mind taking it away. Anyway, it's good to go out and play with Gary. The next day, Gary and Sabrina left Jinna City and headed for Dasha Valley. After a week of long journey, Gary and Sabrina finally arrived at Dasha Valley. As soon as they arrived, they could see many treasure hunters. They all hoped to dig fossils in Dasha Valley and become rich overnight. Because in recent years, many Pokémon professors have proposed to revive ancient Pokémon, which has led many companies to start research, and ancient Pokémon fossils have become an important prop for researching this project. This has also led to a surge in the price of fossils. Now, as long as you can find a complete ancient Pokémon fossil, as long as you don't become a trainer, you can basically lie flat for the rest of your life. Gary and Sabrina came to Dasha Valley to look for ancient Pokémon fossils, so they naturally joined the excavation team. The two bought a pickaxe and went to Dasha Valley in broad daylight. On the way, they also met many people who went to dig fossils together. Gary was observing the people around him all the way. According to the time analysis, Ash and the others were almost here. After all, Gary had inquired about it. There was no collapse near Dasha Valley, so Ash and his team must not have arrived here yet. Gary, look over there. Just as Gary was observing the people in the team, Sabrina suddenly reminded Gary, pointing her finger in a direction in the distance. There is a 3-way intersection over there, and 3 people were about to walk to the center of the 3-way intersection. Those 3 people were Ash and his team. Here they come. It is better to come at the right time than to come early. Ash and his team came at the right time. It seems that Aerodactyl can be conquered today. It's Ash and his team. Let's go and say hello. Gary said. Sabrina nodded. She had discovered that every time she met Ash, Gary would inevitably go up to tease Ash, as if to encourage Ash. Fortunately, Ash was a man, otherwise Sabrina would definitely think too much. At this time, Ash and his team were curious about why so many people came to Dasha Valley. What's wrong with Dasha Valley? Why are there so many trainers? Ash asked in confusion. Don't you even know this? A familiar voice came. Ash immediately turned around and exclaimed, Gary, hey, why are you dressed like this? Looking at Gary's new outfit, Ash was stunned. Because extinct Pokémon fossils were discovered in this place, there has been a wave of searching for Pokémon fossils. Pokémon fossils, Ash and his group said in unison. I don't have time to chat with you, the late king. I'm going to dig fossils first. Gary left a word and left with Sabrina. All that needs to be said has been said, and Ash will definitely come to join the fun. What did you say? Hearing Gary say that he was the king of lateness, Ash was very angry. If Xiao and Misty hadn't stopped him, he would have rushed up to duel with Gary. Damn it, I must find a fossil before Gary and teach him a lesson. Ash immediately decided to compete with Gary to see who can find the fossil first. In the big silly valley, Gary and Sabrina have arrived here, and there are clanging sound around, and they're all digging with pickaxes. Because there are fossils nearby, it is forbidden to use Pokémon to dig, fearing that the fossils will be destroyed, so only manual digging is allowed. Gary, where are you going to start digging? Sabrina asked. She didn't know anything about digging fossils, so she could only ask Gary. Dig from a relatively flat place. The places where ancient Pokémon lived should also choose flat locations. Okay, so the two found a relatively flat place and started digging. Gary had no interest in digging fossils. He was always paying attention to the surrounding environment and dug a few times in the ground to pretend to dig. Ding! Not long after, Gary suddenly felt that the sound of knocking was a little different. So he looked down and saw a spiral stone in the pit he dug. Gary. A pile of defense. Seeing the spiral stone in the pit, Gary's eyebrows jumped wildly. In the original plot, Gary was the first to dig up a fossil, which was also a feces fossil. Gary found a random place to dig and actually dug it out. It seems that Gary was destined to dig out this feces fossil. But Gary didn't plan to show off. He pretended that he didn't dig it and prepared to continue digging somewhere else. Oh, young man, you found a fossil. However, just as Gary was about to leave, an old man from the Mediterranean appeared and picked up the feces fossil in the pit, observing, "It's really a fossil, but it's a feces fossil." Gary, blink on this smiley. You old Biden, you're deliberately making me look bad, right? Gary, you found a fossil. Sabrina was also attracted and exclaimed, Gary, you know a lot, and you actually found a fossil in the flat ground. Gary blushed when he was praised by Sabrina. It's nothing, just a feces fossil, nothing to praise. Gary said embarrassedly. Sabrina just smiled and didn't say much and continued to dig fossils. Gary saw Sabrina laughing secretly and felt that Sabrina was not as cold as he thought and seemed to have a bit of a black-bellied attribute. Young man, although it is a feces fossil, it still has a certain collection value. Old Biden said, No, if you like it, I'll give it to you. Gary waved his hand and ran away. Thank you then. Old Biden was not opposed to it. After all, he was a fossil lover and had played with fossils all his life. He was not opposed to this kind of feces fossil. Gary's Solation found a place, knocked on the ground a few times, and searched slowly. Boom! A blast sounded, and the whole Dasha Valley shook violently. Chapter 89. Ancient Fossil Pokémon Earthquake. Run! What happened? Why did it explode suddenly? The explosion caused a great commotion. Gary looked up in the direction of the smoke. It's finally started. Gary had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Gary, are you okay? Sabrina suddenly came to Gary's side. I'm fine. The explosion happened over there. Let's go take a look. Gary said, took out a Pokeball and released Pidgeot. LV37 Pidgeot/Elite Pidgeot, take us over there. Gary grabbed Pidgeot's foot with one hand and held Sabrina's hand with the other. Pidgeot waved dual wing beat vigorously and took the two of them directly to soaring in the sky, flying towards the direction of the smoke. Oh my, that boy is so handsome. Yeah, fly with a girl, so romantic. When the people around saw Gary's move, they all secretly praised him for being handsome. They also wanted to be carried by Pokémon, but unfortunately the Pokémon they had were not very strong. Pidgeot quickly flew to the scene of the incident and saw Xiao and Misty in a pit, moving rock. According to the original plot, Pikachu detonated the Rocket Team's bomb, causing the ground to crack, and the Rocket Team trio and Ash fell down. Pidgeot, let's go down. Following Gary's command, Pidgeot quickly landed on the ground. That's Gary and Sabrina and Pidgeot. Xiao, who was carrying rock below, also found Gary and the others. What's going on here? Gary asked. The Rocket Team wanted to blow this up, and Ash went to stop the Rocket Team and fell down with the Rocket Team. You guys come and help move rock away. Misty said hurriedly. All of you get out of the way, leave it to me. Sabrina said. Hearing this, Xiao and Misty immediately climbed out of the pit, and a Squirtle followed them up. This Squirtle was released by Ash to stop Team Rocket and did not fall in with him. Sabrina's eyes burst into blue light, and the powerful confusion spread. Every stone in the pit was covered with a layer of confusion and automatically floated in the air. As Sabrina waved her hand, these stones moved to one side and landed safely on the ground. Ash! Misty immediately rushed to the edge of the crack and shouted, but the pit was pitch black and she couldn't see what was going on below. Sabrina, let's go down and take a look. Gary said, okay. Sabrina put her hand on Gary's shoulder, performed time movement, and immediately came to the bottom of the cave. Under the cave is an underground cave, surrounded by many connected stone pillars supporting the cave. Although there is no light source, the visibility is still a few meters away. You little brats, it's all your fault. Yes, it's because you came to hinder us that things turn out like this. What, in the final analysis, it's because you set the bomb. At this time, Uproar's voice came from not far away. Ash, are you there? Gary shouted. Ash, who was arguing with Team Rocket, was stunned when he heard Gary's voice and immediately responded. It's me, Gary. Is that you? Stand there and don't move. I'll come to you. After Gary yelled, he asked Sabrina, Sabrina, can you teleport directly to Ash? I'll try. Sabrina closed her eyes and kept her hand on Gary's shoulder. Found it. Suddenly, Sabrina opened her eyes and released teleport directly, taking Gary away from the spot. Immediately afterwards, Gary and Sabrina appeared beside Ash. Ghost! What? Where's the ghost? Help, there's a ghost, meow. The sudden appearance of Gary and Sabrina scared Team Rocket, but when they saw that the two figures that appeared were people, they all breathed a sigh of relief. Gary, it's you. It's great to see you. Ash saw Gary and was touched. Why do you always cause trouble everywhere? Gary said with a headache. No, it's not me who caused the trouble this time. It's all Team Rocket's fault. Ash said, although this time it is indeed related to Team Rocket, if Ash does not intervene, nothing will actually happen. Maybe the ancient Pokémon sleeping here will run out by themselves, and no damage will be caused. What are you talking about? If you hadn't interfered with us, how could it have become like this? That's what I mean. You're responsible for this. Jesse and James retorted. Didn't I send you to prison? Why did you run out again? Gary interrupted. The three members of Team Rocket were stunned for a moment, and when they saw Gary's face clearly, they all looked angry. It's you, you little brat. Damn, it took us a lot of effort to get out of prison. Jesse and James wanted to tear Gary apart. It was because Gary sent them to the police station that Jesse and James had records in the police station, and even their appearances were photographed. Although the jailbreak was successful, the two of them were also wanted. Every time they were active in the city, they dared not show their true faces. Okay, stop arguing. Now is not the time to argue. We should think about how to get out. Meowth stopped Jesse and James. Don't worry about getting out. I will hand you over to Miss Xiao again. Gary said, Stinky brat, don't. Jessie was halfway through her words when she saw that Gary was not looking at them at all, but was looking ahead. The three members of Team Rocket followed Gary's gaze and saw 6 Pokémon standing next to the stone pillar. The pupils of these Pokémon were full of bloodshot, and they looked like they were in an angry contest condition. Ash also looked confused. He had never seen these Pokémon before, so he took out the Pokédex to scan. Pokédex, Omanite, multiple Omanite, Kabuto, Kabutops, Pokémon that are believed to have become extinct tens of thousands of years ago. Their ecology is a mystery, and some people still believe that they may live somewhere. Everyone come out. Gary is not as stupid as Ash. He opened all the Pokeballs on his waist, and Pokémon appeared around Gary. What are these Pokémon? Ash was shocked. Although he had seen Gary's Pokémon once, now Gary's Pokémon have evolved, and when they're gathered together, they look particularly spectacular. Pidgeot. A cry came from above, and then a Pidgeot rushed out from the top of the cave. Sabrina, you leave the rockets to me, and I will deal with these Pokémon. Gary said, okay. Sabrina nodded, her eyes emitting blue light, and the rockets and their Pokémon were all restrained. What? Psychic. Help. Meow. The rocket trio knew how powerful Psychic was, and they screamed and yelled in fear. Chapter 90, Aerodactyl, be quiet. Sabrina used hypnosis. Instantly, Team Rocket and their Pokémon were all hypnotized. LV-20 Kabuto / Gym. LV-40 Kabutops / Gym. LV-20 Omanite / Gym. LV-40 Omastar / Gym. There are 8 Pokémon in total, and the potential of each one is no less than that of the gym, and Kabutops and Omastar each have a female. You know, female Pokemon are very valuable because female Pokemon can reproduce, and female Pokemon are not sold in the market. With female Omastar and Kabutops, and with the assistance of modern human technology, they can reproduce in large quantities. It is no longer a dream for ancient Pokemon to reappear in the world. At this time, the ancient Pokemons took action, and a Kabutops waved its sickle. Omastar, Omanite, and Kabuto rushed over. Blastoise rushes over with Rapid Spin. Rhydon uses Drill Run. Exeggutor, Arcanine, you accumulate sunlight energy. Gary quickly issued instructions. Kami, Roar. Blastoise and Rhydon rushed out immediately. Blastoise Rapid Spin charged, and the drill on Rhydon's head Rapid Spin also rushed out together. Even the ancient Pokemon were helpless in the face of two heavyweight Pokemon. The overconfident Omanite and Kabutops were both knocked away, and the multiple Omanite and Kabutops were also repelled. Gary immediately reached out to grab the Pokeball. Every time he grabbed a Pokeball, the Pokeball was automatically teleported away. The two Kabutops were very rage. Seeing their companions being taken away by Gary, they had no intention of running away. They simultaneously shot two water jets at Gary. Gary's Pokemon would not let the Kabutops succeed, and they all used skills to fight back. Blastoise used Hydro Pump. Pidgeot used Gust. Arcanine used Flamethrower. Rhydon used Smackdown. Exeggutor used Bullet Seed. The 5 skills intersected and instantly defeated the water jets of the two Kabutops. The 5 skills bombarded the two Kabutops, instantly killing them. The two Kabutops lay on the ground, their eyes spinning in circles. Go Pokeball. Gary threw 2 Pokeballs and collected the two Kabutops. Exeggutor used Confusion to move the 2 Pokeballs on the ground to Gary. Gary grabbed the Pokeballs and teleported all the Kabutops away. Professor Oak must be very happy to have captured 8 ancient Pokemon. Gary, you actually captured them all. Ash realized it at this time and was envious. This is a precious ancient Pokemon, and he also wanted to capture one. This is the wild. It is allowed to capture, and even if I don't capture them, do you think Team Rocket will let them go? Gary pointed at the sleeping Team Rocket and said, well, aren't you going to hand them over to Miss Concha? Ash said, what's the use? They escaped from June Shaw in the first place, and Team Rocket is not as simple as you think. Even if they are in prison, they can pass the news to Team Rocket headquarters. Gary said, Team Rocket also has Pokemon professors. The research of those Pokemon professors is prohibited. If they know that there are ancient Pokemon alive in Dasha Valley, they will definitely target them. Ash was confused. He had been traveling for so long, but he only knew that Team Rocket was a group of bad guys who snatched other Pokemon. He didn't expect that they could be so bad. A hoarse shout of growl came from the cave. Pidgeot. Pidgeot felt the flow of air and immediately looked in the dark direction. Not long after, a figure flew out and landed on a stone pier not far away. A gray pterosaur appeared and made a hoarse growl. What Pokemon is this? Ash immediately took out the Pokédex. Pokédex. Aerodactyl, because of its sharp fangs, is confirmed as a carnivorous Pokemon. It is imagined that it uses sharp claws to capture prey. LV-45 Aerodactyl/Elite, only level 45. Gary thought about the level of this Aerodactyl, but he didn't expect it to be only level 45. In order to deal with this Aerodactyl, Gary spent 5 intermediate rare candy to raise Blastoise's level to level 50. Aerodactyl looked at the strange creatures in front of him and didn't know what they were. It only knew that it was very hungry and just wanted to eat something quickly. It glanced at Gary and the others and immediately stared at Ash and swooped down quickly. Blastoise, use Hydro Pump. Gary would not give Aerodactyl the opportunity to take Ash away and immediately issued an order. Kami. Blastoise immediately sent out Hydro Pump to repel Aerodactyl. After being poured with cold water, Aerodactyl also smelled a little, roared, and launched Dual Wing Beat, condensing pieces of rock around his body, flying towards Blastoise. This is ancient power. High-speed water flow break. Blastoise retreated into his shell, performed water flow break, smashed all the flying rock pieces, and rushed towards Aerodactyl. As an ancient totem, Aerodactyl had never been subjected to such a taunt before and did not dodge, but rushed towards Blastoise. Bang! The water blade in rapid spin chopped down and hit Aerodactyl's hard head, hitting it directly on the ground. Aerodactyl screamed in pain, and after being hit twice in a row, his physical strength was almost unable to support it. Aerodactyl had been sleeping for too long, and his physical strength was not good. In addition, he was very hungry, and the contest condition at this time was not suitable for fighting. The reason why the previous 8 ancient Pokémon were defeated so easily was naturally because of this reason. Water Pulse. Gary saw that Aerodactyl was about to die and issued a skill command with lower power. Chapter 91. Fossil Pokémon Bucket arrives Kami. Blastoise opened her mouth and spit up a water ball. Bang! The water pulse hit, and a ball of mist burst out. The mist dispersed, and Aerodactyl fainted. Go Pokeball. Gary threw the Pokeball. Bang! The Pokeball hit Aerodactyl and successfully captured it. Under the control of confusion, the Pokeball flew in front of Gary, and Gary reached out and grabbed the Pokeball. Ding! Mission released. Collect the Green Reserve Team. Macamp, Aerodactyl, Gyarados, Heracross, Bandura, Magneton. / reward. Intermediate Rare, Candy X10. Advanced Rare, Candy X10, Bronze Crown X1, Silver Crown X1, Gold Bottle Cap X1. Gary was stunned. He captured Aerodactyl and triggered a mission. The system has issued a collection task. The 6 Pokémon that need to be collected are indeed the backup team of Green. Among them, Bandura is the face of Green as the Alliance champion. Among the 6 Pokémon, the other Pokémon still said that the key is how to capture Bandura. Bandura is a precious Pokémon and cannot be traded. If you want to capture Bandura, you can only train her to capture in the wild, but the strength of Bandura in the wild is very strong. Even if Gary's current Pokémon are combined, it is difficult to deal with it. As for young Kira and Pupitar, it is more difficult to capture because young Kira will live underground after birth, eating soil every day and rarely come out from underground. When young Kira eats a mountain of soil, it will evolve into Pupitar. Pupitar is a pupa contest condition, which does not need to eat and is buried underground until it is about to evolve. Then it will come out from underground. So it's not a big problem to capture Bandura, but it's not as difficult as normal to capture baby Kira and Pupitar. Bandura is also very rare, although there are many trainers with Bandura in the animation, while Bandura doesn't appear many times. The Bandura Gary knows now is a female Bandura in the Silver Forest, and the child of that Bandura has been with Ash for a while. The key is that the Bandura lives in the MT Silver Reserve, and the rare Pokémon in the reserve are not allowed to be captured. Everyone come in and rest. Gary didn't think much about it. He would talk about this task later. Now he had to leave the underground cave quickly. Gary collected all the Pokémon, found the Pokeball from Jesse and James, and collected the Abra and Double Egg Gas. Sabrina used teleport to lead everyone to the top of the cave. Ash, are you okay? After coming up from the underground cave, Misty and Xiao came up to check if Ash was okay. Misty, Xiao, don't worry, I'm fine. Team Rocket has been dealt with, and we saw precious ancient Pokémon underground. Ash said proudly. Misty and Xiao were both confused. They didn't see the underground cave, but they heard a lot of noises from underground. If it weren't for Gary and Sabrina who went down, they would have planned to go down and take a look. Are those ancient Pokémon still down there? Xiao asked. When Xiao asked this, Ash, who had just looked proud, suddenly said depressedly, they were all captured by Gary. Xiao and Misty immediately looked at Gary. Gary, can you let us see the ancient Pokémon? Misty asked. Sorry, my Pokémon is full. The captured ones were teleported to Grandpa, so I can't show you for the time being. Gary said, rather than watching, let's call the police first. After that, Gary took out his mobile phone and dialed the number of the police station. After the call with the police station, Gary also called Professor Oak. After all, those ancient Pokémon had never seen modern humans. If Professor Oak released them rashly, they would definitely riot again. Hey, Gary, how come you have time to call me? The phone was connected, and Professor Oak's voice came. It seems that Grandpa has not opened the Pokeball yet. Grandpa, new Pokemon have been captured here, and they should all be teleported over. Gary said, "Oh, you captured new Pokemon again, then I'll go and see later." Professor Oak was busy with research and was not watching the situation on the teleporter in real time. I captured a lot of Pokemon this time, a total of 9 Pokemon. So many. What did you capture? Professor Oak was shocked. Didn't he say that he would take the elite route? So why did he capture so many at once? Nothing, just 2 Omanite and 2 Omastar, 2 Kabuto and 2 Kabutops and 1 Aerodactyl. Gary said. The other end of the phone was silent for a moment. Gary, you are not kidding. Those are ancient Pokemon. All extinct Pokemon. Where did you meet them? Professor Oak questioned. I met them in the underground cave in Dasha Valley. They just woke up and are a little hungry. Grandpa, you should feed them before studying them. And they can't be left in the backyard, lest they eat the Pokemon in the backyard. Gary reminded. In the original plot, Aerodactyl used Ash as food, and it is obvious that they have not been exposed to modern society. If they are released casually, other Pokemon will suffer. Dasha Valley, I didn't expect that there are living ancient Pokemon in addition to fossils. Professor Oak exclaimed, I've said everything I should say. Grandpa, take good care of these ancient Pokemon. There should be females in Omastar and Kabutops. If Pokemon Alliance needs them, Grandpa can let them go. Gary said, Female? How can you be sure? Even Professor Oak doesn't know the ecological information of ancient Pokemon. So how can Gary know it? Because when I captured Omanite and Kabuto, Kabutops and Omastar didn't run away. In this case, it is likely that Omanite and Kabuto are their children. The egg groups of Kabutops and Omastar are both Water 1 and Water 3. There is no racial segregation between the two sides, and they can reproduce with each other. You are really careful in observation. I know everything you told me. I will pay attention to it. Professor Oak said, Then Grandpa, please take good care of them for me. At the same time, I am very puzzled as to why they can survive from ancient times. Although rock Pokemon can rely on long sleep to avoid disasters, it will not take tens of thousands of years. Gary said, What you said makes sense. Maybe they have been living underground all the time. Professor Oak said, Maybe. Gary had to agree with this statement. After all, sleeping for several years is impossible with just a few Pokemon. Even legendary Pokemon may not live for 10,000 years. Chapter 92. Teaching Flying Techniques, Mr. Gary. Thank you so much. Don't worry this time. I will never let Team Rocket escape from us. Kuncha was very grateful for Gary's help after learning what happened in Dasha Valley, and also promised that the police station would not make mistakes again. After all, the prisoner's escape is a serious dereliction of duty for the police station. This time, the Rocket Trio was arrested and will definitely be locked up in a prison with better protection. However, with the ability of the Rocket Trio, it will definitely not be a big problem for them to escape. After all, Bamu has connections with Interpol, and the relationship with Meridan is not clear, so it will not be a big problem to get the Rocket Trio out. Then I'll trouble Miss June Shah. Gary nodded. Afterwards, Miss June Shah announced to the public that Dasha Valley was at risk of collapse and no one was allowed to enter. Since it was forbidden to enter, the Pokemon Alliance would naturally send people here to investigate, mainly to see if there were any ancient Pokemon. At present, the fossil revival technology is not mature yet, so ancient Pokemon are naturally precious Pokemon. When the fossil revival technology matures, ancient Pokemon will no longer be precious Pokemon, but it will be at least 3 or 4 years later. Gary did not plan to travel with Ash and his group. Ash and his group continued to set off. Gary and Sabrina returned to the nearest city. After all, Gary planned to breed the Aerodactyl, an ancient Pokemon that had just been captured. Go back to the city. Gary and Sabrina came to the Pokemon Center, and Gary hurriedly called Professor Oak and asked Professor Oak to send Aerodactyl. Gary, you were too anxious. I just fed them. Professor Oak was very unhappy. He finally had the opportunity to study Aerodactyl. He had just fed 9 Pokemon, and Gary called to ask for Aerodactyl. Grandpa, didn't I leave you a few ancient Pokemon? I want to breed Aerodactyl myself. While I'm done breeding, I'll send Aerodactyl back to you. Gary said, okay. After all, it was Gary's Pokémon, so Professor Oak couldn't say anything. He told Gary about his discovery. Gary, I just extracted some tissue samples from these 9 Pokémon and studied them. They're still very young, probably between 5 and 7 years old. They didn't survive from ancient times. Maybe they developed the habit of long sleep because of the lack of food underground. Professor Oak said, is that so? Grandpa, please send Aerodactyl over. Gary said, I see, but your Pokémon slot is full. Which Pokémon do you plan to send over? Professor Oak asked. Executor. Just like that, Gary used Executor to exchange Aerodactyl. Grandpa, I got the Pokeball. Bye. Gary hung up the phone after getting Aerodactyl. Arriving at the public training ground, Gary looked at the Pokeball in his hand. Aerodactyl, let me see your attributes. Pokémon, Aerodactyl, attributes, rock, flying, level, 45, potential, elite, ability, hard head. Even if you use a move that will be damaged by the reaction force, you will not be damaged by the reaction force. Skills, bite, wing attack, scary face, rock slide, crunch, ancient power, iron head, fire fong, take down, rock slide. Intimacy, 120, maximum 255. Intimacy is 120. It seems that this Aerodactyl still obeys the rule of the strong being respected. After being defeated by me, it will listen to me obediently. Gary thought to himself. Gary originally planned to use rare candy to upgrade Aerodactyl to improve intimacy, but now it is no longer necessary. Aerodactyl, come out. Gary released Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl made a hoarse growl and stared at Gary silently. Come on, put Soothe Bell in your shoelace space. Gary took out Soothe Bell and handed it to Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl lowered its head, held Soothe Bell in its mouth, and put it in its carrying space. Gary touched Aerodactyl with his hand. Aerodactyl's skin was very hard and rough, and it felt like touching stone. Gary taught Aerodactyl Stone Edge. Aerodactyl was stunned. It felt that it had mastered a new skill and looked at Gary with a suspicious look. This is a secret between us. Don't tell others. Listen to me carefully. I will help you become stronger. Gary said. Aerodactyl nodded. The resistance in his heart before was gone after experiencing the benefits of awakening skills. Come in. Gary put Aerodactyl into the Pokeball. It's time to consider teaching Pokémon to fly. Gary said, although you can ride with Pidgeot, Crobat, and Aerodactyl, Pokémon cannot take people flying at full speed because the human body cannot withstand high-speed wind resistance. Once Pokémon accelerates at full speed, people will be whirlwind, even if they were Protector. For example, the full speed of Pidgeot flying is Mach 2, which is 2,448 kilometers per hour. Even if the physical fitness of humans in the Pokémon world is strong enough, they cannot withstand such a speed. If you want to ride a Pokémon and want it to fly at full speed, you must let the Pokémon master the flying skill. In the game, only by mastering the flying skill can you reach another city at will. The same is true in reality. If you want to ride a Pokémon and fly at full speed, you must let the Pokémon master the flying skill. Pokémon who master the flying skill can use the power of the wind to build an air shield around the body. This air shield can isolate wind resistance, allowing Pokémon to fly at full speed, and it is more labor-saving. The flying skill can be taught. There are teaching places in each region. The cost of learning each Pokémon is 30,000 yuan, which is not expensive. After deciding on the next route, Gary went to discuss with Sabrina. I have no objection, but unfortunately, I don't have a flying-type Pokémon. Sabrina didn't object after hearing Gary's travel plan, but it was a pity that she didn't have a flying-type Pokémon, otherwise she could learn. Why don't you just breed a flying-type Pokémon? Gary suggested. There's psychic and flying Pokémon, but they are too weak and not very good-looking. The only one that is qualified is Braviary in the Jade Wash form. However, Braviary in the Jade Wash form can only evolve in the Jade Wash region environment, and can only evolve into normal and flying-type Braviary in the modern environment. No, I plan to see if there is a chance to capture Beldum. Sabrina said. Gary just smiled. Beldum is too difficult to capture. It depends on Sabrina's own luck. Chapter 93, Kanglan City Driving School Blue City. After a week, Gary and Sabrina arrived in Blue City, where there's a place to teach flying. The place of teaching is a driving school. In addition to teaching Pokémon flying, it also teaches people to fly airplanes. Hello, both of you. Is there anything I can help you with? A man in a blue work uniform came forward and asked when he entered the hall. I hope my Pokémon can learn flying. Gary explained his purpose. So you want to learn flying? Go to window number 3. The man pointed to the window on the right. Gary and Sabrina walked in the direction the man pointed. There was a young lady sitting at window number 3. Hello, this is the window for handling flying learning business. Do both of your Pokémon need to learn flying? The young lady asked. It's my Pokémon that needs to learn flying. Gary said, got it. The young lady nodded and asked, what kind of Pokémon needs to learn flying? Pidgeot, Crobat, Aerodactyl. Gary said, okay, I'll record it. The young lady entered the name of the Pokémon Pidgeot and Crobat in the form. When it came to filling in Aerodactyl, the young lady was stunned for a moment, then turned around and asked, sir, you just said Aerodactyl, right? Yes. The young lady, sir, you're not kidding me. Aerodactyl is an extinct Pokémon. The young lady reminded, no, if you don't believe me, I can release Aerodactyl to show you. Gary said, no need. The young lady was surprised. Although Aerodactyl is an extinct Pokémon, it is still alive today. Currently, Lance, the champion of the Johto Region Alliance, has an Aerodactyl in his hand. Sir, what is your name? The young lady asked. Gary Oak. After filling out the form, the young lady briefly explained the course. The teaching time is 1 month. In the first week, there will be a coach to teach for 1 hour every day. After that, you need to train yourself to supervise Pokémon training. In the second half of the month, you also need to train yourself according to the lessons. If you can't master the flying technique after 1 month, the driving school will not be responsible. If you still want to continue learning, you only need to pay half the price for the second payment. But there is no guarantee that you will be taught. There will be no discount for subsequent payments, and it will still be half the price. I understand. Gary didn't say much and paid 90,000 yuan. There is also a Pokémon teleporter at the driving school. Gary also asked Professor Oak to teleport Crobat over, and Gary teleported Arcanine over, after paying the registration fee. The next morning, Gary came to the training ground of the driving school. When he came here, Gary saw that the coach was already here, and there was a Pidgeot as tall as a person next to the coach. LV40 Pidgeot/Gym. Hello, I'm Gary. I'm here to learn flying. Gary walked up to the coach and Pidgeot. Hello, my name is Gene. I'm the flying coach. Please release your Pokémon. Gene said. Gary nodded. Come out. Great. Pidgeot, Crobat, Aerodactyl all appeared. Oh, Aerodactyl. Seeing Aerodactyl, Ajin was shocked. He didn't expect that there would be an extinct Aerodactyl among the students this time. Coach, can we start teaching? Gary asked. It must be said that Aerodactyl is too famous, even more famous than the quasi-god Dragonite. After all, it is an extinct Pokémon. At present, Aerodactyl is much more precious than Dragonite. Okay, let your Pokémon fly to the sky first, and let my Pidgeot perform the flying technique for your Pokémon to see. Ajin said. Hearing this, Gary let all his 3 Pokémon fly to the sky, and Ajin's Pidgeot also flew up, performing the flying technique and soaring in the sky for Gary's 3 Pokémon to watch. The difficulty of learning the flying technique is not great, as long as the Pokémon can control the energy of the wind element. The first step is to assist the power of the wind element to build an air shield around the body for flying. Gary's 3 Pokémon are all of high level, and they're definitely up to standard for controlling the energy of the wind element. The first step is very simple. All 3 Pokémon successfully built an air shield around their bodies. The air shield was successfully built, but every time it flew, the air shield would break. Such an air shield could not withstand the wind resistance of full-speed flying. Yes, your 3 Pokémon are all very strong. Next, you just need to stabilize the air shield. It won't be a big problem to master it within a month. Ajin said, Really? That's great. Gary nodded with satisfaction and looked at Ajin by the way. This Ajin is not just a flying technique coach, but also the owner of the Blue Gym. Gary came here mainly to learn the flying technique, but also to challenge the blue gym. Gary has also been paying attention to Jin's Pidgeot, which is very strong and better than Gary's 3 Pokémon in flying skills. It's time. You stay with your Pokémon. I'm leaving first. Jin looked at the time. It's been an hour. It's time to leave. Well, goodbye, coach. Jin waved to soaring in the sky. Pine. Pidgeot immediately swooped down and landed in front of Jin. See you tomorrow, Jin said, and left on Pidgeot. Pidgeot performed the flying technique, and the air shield surrounded himself and Jin, then flew into the sky and quickly disappeared into the sky. Not only is it fast, but it is also quite flexible. It seems that the gym battles in the future will be more troublesome. Gary murmured. Gary has investigated that the battlefield of the Azure Gym is open air with a large range of activities. It is really difficult to fight it with Pokémon that can't fly. After all, flying Pokémon have the ability to control the air and can attack from the sky. Pokémon on the ground can only defend or dodge. Even if they have anti-air skills, they may not be able to hit the opponent. Especially since Ajin's Pidgeot is so fast, the speed of other flying Pokémon in his hand will not be much worse than Pidgeot. It seems that the future gyms can only rely on these 3. Gary raised his head and looked at the 3 Pokémon who were practicing flying skills. Aerodactyl has rock type and restrains flying Pokémon. It will definitely be the main player in the future gym battles. Half a month has passed. Mr. Gary, the package you asked for has arrived. Please check it. On this day, Gary came to the counter and Nurse Joy informed Gary that there was his package. The things in this package are naturally the protector for Rhydon's evolution. The task issued by the system has been completed, so Rhydon must be evolved. Chapter 94. Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. Gary opened the package handed over by Nurse Joy. Inside were rectangular orange bricks. The corners of each brick were connected to each other. There were 4 bricks in total. This was the protector needed to evolve Rhydon. After confirming that it was a protector, Gary signed for it. Then, he rushed to the public area behind the Pokémon Center with the protector in his arms and released Rhydon. Who? Rhydon thought that today's training time was up, but he found that he was the only Pokémon around, and his partners were not there. Your evolution item has arrived, Gary said. Who? Rhydon was stunned, then ecstatic, and immediately looked at the paper box in Gary's hand. Gary took the protector out of the paper box. Don't mention it. This protector is quite heavy. This is the item for evolution. Take the protector and you can evolve, Gary said. Roar. Rhydon has been looking forward to evolution for a long time. He was willing to make a bet with Gary because Gary said he could help him evolve. Take it. Gary put the protector on Rhydon's body. Roar. When he touched the protector, Rhydon felt the cells in his body being activated, and the whole body was filled with the incandescent light of evolution. Rhydon's height increased rapidly, and in an instant he was more than 2 meters tall. His body became flatter and wider. When the light faded, a super iron Tyrannosaurus with a black and orange body appeared. After evolution, the super iron Tyrannosaurus was covered with black rock all over its body, and its skin was like rock normal. Its arms also grew arm guards like oriental sticks. There was a hole in the center of each palm, which could be filled with rock. By forcibly contracting the muscles, the rock inside could be fired out. Pokémon, Ultra Iron Tyrannosaurus attribute, ground, rock level, 47 potential, quasi-elite ability. Lightning Rod, attracts electric-type moves to itself, does not take damage, but increases special attack. Skills, tackle, bulldoze, smackdown, horn attack, stomp, rock critical hit, drill run, takedown, hammer arm, earthquake, horn drill. Professor skills, thunderbolt, stone edge, mega kick. Intimacy, 255. Max value 255. Carried item, soothe bell. It actually awakened the horn drill skill. Gary was quite surprised. This skill is a one-hit kill skill. Even if it cannot be a one-hit kill in reality, it can definitely cause huge damage. Rhydon's level has also reached 47. Gary put his hand on Rhydon and used 3 intermediate rare candies to raise Rhydon's level to level 50. In the next half month of training, you should get familiar with your horn drill skill, Gary said. Roar! The super iron Tyrannosaurus was shocked. It had just awakened a skill, but Gary knew it before he even said it. What a terrifying trainer! He saw through him at a glance. Then, Gary released Blastoise and Eevee and asked them to do the performance training. Sabrina would come after they finished their training. Gary released Crobat and asked Crobat to take him to the driving school with the flying technique. At present, Gary's 3 Pokémon have mastered the flying technique. However, when they perform the flying at full speed, the air shield does not last long. The current flying technique can only be regarded as a semi-finished product. The passing standard of the flying technique is that the Pokémon can continue to fly for half an hour with the trainer under the fast contest condition. Half an hour is already very fast. After all, the physical strength of Pokémon is limited. It is very good to be able to maintain full speed flying for half an hour. When they arrived at the driving school, Gary released Pidgeot and Aerodactyl and continued to train the flying technique. This skill teaching is so slow. It takes a month to learn the flying technique alone. It is better to use the skill secret book directly. However, skill manuals are too precious, and they are consumables, one less each time you use them. The heart scale has a low production volume and a high demand, so it is naturally in short supply. Of course, if Gary is willing to spend money, he can still buy it, but he is not in a hurry now. Gary wants his Pokémon to grow for a while to see if he can awaken other skills. At least he has to wait until his Pokémon grows to level 60 before considering teaching skills. For example, the skill Stone Edge can be awakened by Super Iron Tyrannosaurus and Aerodactyl, but Gary taught it in advance. If he used skill manuals, he would definitely lose money. Fortunately, this is a permanent skill learning device given by the system, and there is no loss if it is used. It's time to capture the Pokémon that the system requires to be collected. Now everything is going smoothly according to Gary's plan, and Gary also plans to continue to complete the tasks issued by the system. This time, the 6 Pokémon collected required a Magneton to be captured because the first generation Pokémon were rare and the green electric Pokémon could only use Magneton to replace the missing electric Pokémon. Gary planned to breed Magneton first because among the Pokémon Gary had captured so far, there was a lack of electric Pokémon, and he could capture one. Magnemite was not a rare Pokémon, and there were many of them. They usually gathered in places with electricity, so power plants were naturally the first choice. There were a lot of Magnemites gathered near power plants in almost every city. Gary decided to go to the power plant in Azure City in the afternoon, although he did not hope to capture a high-potential Magnemite. Sabrina, I plan to go to the power plant in Azure City in the afternoon. Do you want to go with me? Gary asked. Are you going to capture an electric Pokémon? Yes, I'm planning to capture Magnemite. Then go ahead. I still have to supervise Eevee. Sabrina has no interest in electric Pokémon, and Eevee has been a breeder for so long, and the intimacy is enough. Sabrina doesn't want to miss the process of Eevee evolving into a sun Pokémon. Okay, then I'm leaving. Gary waved goodbye. Arriving at the entrance of the Pokémon Center, Gary jumped on a Pidgeot and let Pidgeot fly with him. Although Pidgeot has not yet fully mastered the flying technique, it is still no problem to fly with people as long as it is not flying at full speed. Power plants will naturally not be built in the center of the city, but in a place a little outside the city. It is not uninhabited, but except for the staff of the power plant, basically no one will run here. After flying for a distance, Gary can already see the power plant, but soaring in the sky is suddenly covered by a layer of dark clouds. Is it going to rain? Looking at soaring in the sky, which was suddenly covered by dark clouds, Gary was a little confused. The weather forecast clearly said that it would be sunny and cloudy today, so it shouldn't rain. Chapter 95. Power Plant. I didn't expect that the weather forecast in any world would be inaccurate sometimes. Gary complained. Because he went to the driving school to learn the flying technique, Gary has been paying attention to the weather forecast recently, because the flying technique cannot be practiced in bad weather. Although the flying technique can increase the flying skills of flying Pokémon, it can't play any role in resisting bad weather. Pine. Pidgeot also stopped suddenly and turned back to yell. Is bad weather coming? Gary asked. Pine. Pidgeot nodded. Pidgeot is a bird. They can naturally feel the changes in the weather. Then let's go down. Gary said. When learning the flying technique, Ajin said that if the Pokemon on the bike give a warning while riding, you must land and find a safe place to hide. Pidgeot performed the flying technique a little bit and flew a distance in the direction of the power station before landing. Why is there such bad weather all of a sudden? After landing, Gary looked at soaring in the sky, which was full of dark clouds. The weather will definitely be very bad, and it is very likely to be a thunderstorm. However, thunderstorms are not a bad thing for Gary, because electric Pokemon love thunderstorms the most. Before humans mastered the use of electricity, electric Pokemon in the wild would absorb lightning produced by nature, and thunderstorms are naturally a good place for electric Pokemon to absorb electricity. Because thunderstorms are too violent, ordinary electric Pokemon cannot withstand the power of a thunderbolt alone. So electric Pokemon will resist thunder in groups and absorb the electricity of lightning together. At this time, Magnemites will come out in groups, use magnetism to attract thunderstorms, and absorb lightning together. Once thunderstorms appear, nearby Magnemites and Magnetons will run out, so Gary doesn't have to look for them one by one. Boom! Suddenly, lightning flashed in the dark clouds. A few seconds later, Magnemites appeared from the woods and flew toward the power plant. So many Magnemites. Gary looked at the Magnemites that appeared from the surrounding woods. There were more than 10 of them. This number was indeed too much, but unfortunately, the Magnemites near Gary were all ordinary qualifiers, and there was not even one elite qualifier. Crobat, come out. Gary released Crobat and let Crobat stay on his shoulder, so that when he encountered high potential Magnemite, he could directly use Black Eyes to prevent the other party from escaping. Even if these Magnemites stayed with Magneton, Gary could easily deal with them. Gary headed towards the power plant, constantly observing the Magnemites coming from all directions along the way. LV-30 for Magneton/Elite Magneton. Gary saw a Magneton, but unfortunately, it was only Elite Potential, and Gary now has higher requirements for Pokemon Potential. Previously, the standard for breeding Pokemon was only Gym level, but after exploring the system for so long, Gary found that the crown that improves the potential of Pokemon is very difficult to obtain. If Gary captures too many Pokemon with Gym potential, he can only breed to level 49 at most, and cannot break through to level 50. His growth is bound to be limited. So now Gary captures Pokemon with at least elite potential, and Pokemon with quasi-elite potential is also okay, but this Pokemon must have a first-order evolution and must evolve with an evolution stone. The key is the collection tasks issued by the system, among which there are also many Pokemon that Gary wants to breed, so the potential must not be too low. Quack, 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 quack. Soon, Gary came to the bottom of a group of Magnemite and Magneton. LV-20 Magnemite/Elite, LV-8 Magnemite/Gym, LV-33 Magneton/Gym. Alas, there's not a single one with quasi-elite potential. When they came to the bottom where the Magnemites gathered, they saw quite a few Pokemon with Gym potential, but they did not see any Magnemites or Magnetons with quasi-elite potential. That's Elekid. Just when Gary was about to give up in confusion, a Pokemon with yellow and black patterns emerged from the woods. This Pokemon had a pair of plug-like horns on its head. LV-31 Elekid/Elite. Gary's eyes lit up. An Elekid with elite potential must be captured. But Gary did not rush to do it, but wanted to see what this Elekid wanted to do. The Elekid came here naturally to be baptized by thunder and absorb a wave of electricity. Wow! Elekid 8 soaring in the sky, and the surrounding Magnemites scattered, leaving Elekid with an open space. So cool. Gary was surprised. Although Magnemites and Magnetons have the advantage in numbers, they are not united, and Elekid seems to be the king of the area, just like a little bully in a power plant. Boom! A thunderbolt fell, and the Magnemites that were attached together withstood the thunderbolt, and their bodies were bathed in golden thunderbolts, and their bodies began to absorb the thunderbolts. Boom! Thunderbolts fell one after another, and Magnemites and Magnetons all went to resist the thunderbolts in groups. Why are they all golden thunderbolts? Gary also knows about the electricity generated by nature. In the Pokemon world, lightning is also divided into levels. Ordinary lightning is white and blue, and the other colors of lightning are of high level. Yellow lightning is a little special. The yellow lightning released by ordinary Pokémon is not very powerful. Humans in this world can resist it with their bodies, but saffron lightning is different. It is very powerful and higher than ordinary lightning. But golden lightning is different. It is very powerful, and golden lightning is unlikely to appear in normal thunderstorms. Moreover, it takes time for Magnemite to absorb these golden thunders. The power of thunderstorms is still very violent and needs to be absorbed slowly. Boom! A thunderbolt fell straight down and landed on Elekid. Elekid is very domineering. 7 or 8 Magnemites gather together to absorb a thunderbolt, but Elekid wants to take it all by himself. Wow! The golden thunderbolt landed on Elekid and did not dissipate. It lingered around Elekid in the form of energy. Elekid forcibly absorbed the power of the thunderbolt into his body. Seeing Elekid's behavior, Gary thought of Pikachu. Pikachu was originally protecting Ash by resisting the thunder with his body, which eventually made Pikachu powerful. It seems that this Elekid knows that lightning can enhance its strength, so it deliberately absorbs thunder at this time. However, absorbing thunder alone is very dangerous, and Pikachu almost died at that time. Chapter 96. Elekid absorbing thunder. Wow. Elekid endured the pain and transformed the power of thunder in his body. He was absorbing the power of thunder bit by bit, and the lightning on his body was gradually weakening. Elekid absorbed thunder faster than those groups of Magnemites. In a few minutes, he converted all the thunder into his own energy, and arcs kept coming out of his horns. Boom! Then, another thunder fell and landed on Elekid. Elekid continued to absorb the lightning. Still coming, this Elekid is going to die. Gary was shocked. Elekid is not much different from Pikachu. It is good enough to absorb a thunder. If he wants to continue absorbing, his body will definitely not be able to support it. Wow! Elekid obviously can't continue to absorb thunder, but he is still forcing it to absorb it. The hair covering his body is standing up. The surrounding Magnemites and Magnetons are silently watching Elekid, and they don't want to help Elekid. Gary also came closer to observe Elekid. Elekid looked painful, and his body could no longer absorb electricity. The lightning around him kept spreading outward. Do you want help? Gary considered whether to help. After all, he really liked this Elekid. Super Iron Tyrannosaurus, come out. Gary was still a little worried, so he exposed the Super Iron and released it. Roar! Super Iron Tyrannosaurus is a lightning rod ability. It enjoys thunderstorms very much. Every time a thunderstorm occurs, it can absorb lightning to its heart's content and feel the special attack being strengthened. Don't activate your ability. I'll let you activate it again and again. Gary reminded. Roar! Rhydon nodded. In fact, it didn't matter whether it absorbed lightning or not. After all, it didn't have special attack skills before, and absorbing lightning had no effect on Rhydon. Boom! A thunderbolt came down at lightning speed and instantly landed on Elekid. The second thunderbolt was not absorbed completely, and another thunderbolt came. Wow! Elekid was stunned for a moment. An unexpected situation occurred. Elekid could not withstand the power of 3 thunderbolts at once, but Elekid did not give up. It was still insisting on converting electricity, but the capacitor in its body could not accommodate so much electricity. Wow! The next moment, Elekid's whole body burst into golden light. It was the light of evolution, but because the body was surrounded by thunder, the light of evolution was dyed golden. Gary did not expect that Elekid would break through the shackles and begin to evolve in this thunder baptism. But this is also normal. When creatures face desperate situations, they will stimulate their potential in their bodies. Moreover, this Elekid itself is not low in level and has long exceeded the level that can evolve. In the light, Elekid's body gradually grew and soon reached a height of 1.2 meters. His arms became more slender, and his body became stronger. Wow! The light of evolution dissipated. Electabuzz was bathed in thunder, quickly absorbing the overflowing thunder power into its body, and at the same time, Electabuzz was also seducing the thunder in the thundercloud. Electabuzz can accommodate more electricity in its body. Compared with Elekid, Electabuzz can absorb the electricity generated by a large power plant. Boom! Boom! Several golden thunders fell and headed straight for Electabuzz. The horns on Electabuzz's head kept flashing yellow lights, and all the thunders were absorbed by Electabuzz into its body. Wow! Electabuzz roared, and the electricity in its body burst out, generating a shock wave that spread around. Magnemite and Magneton saw Elekid evolve into Electabuzz and retreated. LV-32 Electabuzz / champion after the baptism of thunder and lightning. Electabuzz's potential has been raised to champion, which is simply unbelievable. Gary was speechless. Could it be that Pokémon can also assist the power of heaven and earth to improve their own potential? Wow! Electabuzz looked towards the power plant. Electabuzz! Gary shouted. Wow! Electabuzz looked back at Gary, not knowing what Gary wanted to find him for anyway. He had no interest in Gary. Electabuzz, be my Pokémon and join me on the world stage. Gary invited. Wow! Electabuzz waved his hand. He had no interest in becoming a trainer Pokémon and was about to leave. However, just as Electabuzz took a step, a dark purple beam of light shone on Electabuzz, and a fascinating power made Electabuzz unable to leave. Electabuzz turned around and saw a big purple bat looking at him with a captivating gaze. Black's eyes, where do you want to run? Since you don't want to be my Pokémon, let's decide by fighting. Gary said, roar. The Super Iron Tyrannosaurus walked out from Gary's side. Wow! Electabuzz's legs burst into electricity, and he quickly rushed towards the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. And with the force of thunder, he hit the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus on the cheek. Bang! The thunder punch hit, but it only made the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus's head slightly tilted. The electricity on Electabuzz's fist was directly absorbed by the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus's body. The Super Iron Tyrannosaurus did not hold back, swung his right arm, and hit Electabuzz's belly with an arm hammer. Electabuzz felt the huge force, and his body flew backwards several meters like a kite with a broken string and fell to the ground. Wow! Electabuzz, who was hit by the arm hammer, did not lose his ability to fight. He stood up with difficulty. Electabuzz felt the injuries on his body, which were very serious. He basically had no strength to fight anymore. Smackdown. Following Gary's order, the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus raised his palm, and a piece of rock was launched from his palm. Electabuzz was very unwilling to release the electricity in his body, trying to smash the flying rock, but the released thunder shock turned into pure electric current and flowed into the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. Once the lightning rod ability is activated, it can actively guide electric skills to itself. Of course, Thunder Punch, a close-range electric skill, will not be guided, but special attack electric moves will be guided. Bang! The rock hit Electabuzz and knocked him out. Go Pokeball. Gary threw the Pokeball in his hand and hit Electabuzz with one shot and collected it. The Pokeball did not shake on the ground, and the red light on the switch went out directly, successfully captured. 4. Crobat immediately flew over, picked up the Pokeball, and handed it to Gary. Gary got the Pokeball, and the Pokeball was not teleported away, but still in Gary's hand. What's going on? Gary was also stunned by this sudden situation and hurriedly took out the Pokédex, trying to open the Pokédex, but found that it could not be opened at all. Chapter 97. Team Rocket invades the power plant. Pokédex can't be opened. What happened? Gary frowned, thinking that this should be related to the sudden thunderstorm. The Pokémon Pokédex developed by Professor Oak has a teleportation function. If you want to make the Pokédex invalid, it can only mean that the magnetic field near the power plant is disordered, causing the Pokémon Pokédex to be unusable, and the teleportation function will naturally fail. There is no signal for collection. Gary took out his mobile phone and found that there was no signal on his mobile phone. This situation was obviously not right. Kanglan City is a city. If a city can be built in this area, such a bad climate will definitely not appear frequently. Otherwise, it will affect the development of the city. There must be something wrong when things are abnormal. Gary looked in the direction of the power plant. Soaring in the sky was still covered by a layer of dark clouds, and the dark clouds were still expanding outward. Did something happen at the power plant? Gary thought that something might have happened at the power plant. Crobat asked the Magnemites here, especially those near the power plant, if anything happened to the power plant recently. Gary said, although there is no psychic Pokemon, and it is impossible to know what Pokemon wants to say, it is still possible to let Pokemon communicate with Pokemon. As long as you change the way of asking, you can get the answer you want. Crobat nodded and asked the nearby Magnemites about the power plant. Pokemon living near the city are relatively friendly to normal, and there is no hostility between Crobat and Magnemite, so the Magnemites are very generous to answer Crobat's questions. Crobat returned to Gary and told Gary what he had found out. Although he didn't understand what Crobat said, after spending so much time together, Gary still understood what Crobat wanted to say. As Gary guessed, there was indeed a problem at the power plant, but Crobat couldn't express clearly what happened. Crobat, I'll give you a task. You rush back to the Pokemon Center as quickly as possible and inform Sabrina that I'll wait for her here. Gary said, swish. As soon as Gary finished speaking, a figure appeared beside him. For Sabrina. Gary and Crobat were both shocked. Sabrina came over before they even went to look for her. Sabrina, why are you here? Gary asked, I'm worried about you, so I came to see you. Sabrina said worriedly, did something happen in the city? Gary keenly noticed the problem in Sabrina's words. The power outage in the city, and I couldn't get through to the power plant. You said you were going to find a Magnemite near the power plant, and I was worried about you, so I came to see you. Sabrina said. After listening to Sabrina's words, it was certain that something went wrong at the power plant. Sabrina, ask these Magnemites what happened at the power plant. Gary said, okay. Sabrina also knew that the matter was not simple, so she ran to ask the Magnemites wandering nearby. Although the thunderstorm weather has always existed, there's been no thunder. It's strange to say that after the thunderstorm weather appeared, there has been thunder and not a drop of rain has fallen. Only legendary Pokemon can cause this kind of strange weather. Could it be that a legendary Pokemon has entered the power plant? But logically speaking, there are people in the power plant here, and legendary Pokemon are unlikely to actively approach. Gary, Magneton told me that a group of people came to the power plant recently, drove away all the wild Pokemon around the power plant, and controlled the employees in the power plant. Sabrina said. Gary was confused. He didn't expect that there was really an accident in the power plant. It seemed that someone had occupied the power plant. The power generation technology in the Pokemon world is more advanced. A power plant does not need too many employees, and it is not difficult for the other party to control the power plant. Sabrina, let's go to the power plant to take a look. Gary said, okay. Sabrina did not object. So the two went to the power plant together. In the monitoring room of the power plant, two men and women wearing R-shaped clothes are staring at everything on the screen. Unknowingly, two strange figures appeared behind them. Hey, it's time to change shifts. A voice came from behind. The man and woman who were staring at the monitoring screen immediately turned their heads and saw a pair of shining eyes looking at them. In an instant, their eyelids drooped, revealing a sleepy look. Hypnosis is done, Gary, you can ask. Sabrina said. Gary walked up to the two men and women of Team Rocket and did not rush to ask, but looked at the pictures on the monitoring screen. There were several pictures on the monitoring screen, all of which were monitoring the entrance and exit of the power plant, as well as some important places in the power plant. Zapdos! In one of the pictures, a Zapdos was seen being restrained by a cage made of iron pipes. Zapdos was constantly releasing lightning, trying to escape from the cage, but lightning had no effect on this kind of steel pipe. After being reminded by Gary, Sabrina also saw the lightning on the monitoring screen and was also shocked. This was the first time she had seen a legendary Pokemon in her life. Why is Zapdos here? Gary asked. Zapdos was attracted by us. The female Rocket member responded. What is your plan? The Rocket team said, assist Professor Solano to capture Zapdos. Gary was shocked. Gary knew Professor Solano. The research direction of this professor was very cruel. He wanted to replace legendary Pokemon with machines. In short, he wanted to let machines have the power of legendary Pokemon. In the Pokemon animation Outer Domain, Professor Solanu wanted to transfer all the power of Raikou into a piece of purple crystal, but failed in the end. I didn't expect that before this. Professor Solanu had even had his eye on Zapdos. However, with Gary here this time, Professor Solanu's plan was doomed to fail. How many people are there in total? Gary asked. 4 people in total, including us and 2 elite members, who were the main responsible persons for this operation. The 2 responded together. Gary looked at the surveillance camera and saw that there were indeed 2 members of the rocket team at Zapdos' location. They were 2 men wearing white rocket team uniforms, which were completely different from the 2 men and women in the surveillance room. In the rocket team, ordinary rocket team members are only black team members, while elite members wear white or gray uniforms. There are no requirements for the uniforms of executives. Only the Decorate Rocket Team logo is required. What are the Pokemon of the 2 elite members? Gary asked. It's Marowak, Sandslash, and Magneton. Marowak and Sandslash are both ground-type Pokemon, which can be used to deal with Zapdos. The Rocket Team is well prepared this time. Chapter 98. Saving Zapdos, where all the power plant workers being held captive. Gary already knew the number of Team Rocket. The next step was to rescue the people in the power plant and then stop Team Rocket's plan. Team Rocket's minions. They're all held captive in the power plant warehouse. Sabrina, what are your plans? Gary looked at Sabrina. I'll listen to you. Sabrina knew that Gary would not let it go. Gary looked at the screen on the monitoring screen. The power in Zapdos' body had been absorbed a lot. If this continued, when the power in Zapdos' body was exhausted, he would die. This Solanu really had a problem with his brain. He didn't catch a good legendary Pokemon, but had to kill the other party. Sabrina, go to the warehouse to rescue the power plant workers, and I'll go to rescue Zapdos. Gary said, Can you do it alone? Sabrina said worriedly, Don't you still believe in my strength? And in order to prevent Team Rocket from taking the power plant workers as hostages, you are the best candidate to rescue them. Gary said, Okay, I'll come to help you after I save the people. You should be careful. Sabrina said, Well, let these 2 people fall asleep first. Gary said. Sabrina nodded, her eyes flashing blue, and the 2 Rocket Team minions fell directly. Then, Gary and Sabrina acted separately. Sabrina went to save people, and Gary secretly came to the place where Zapdos was captured. This time, the Rocket Team used the power plant to attract Zapdos. So the capture location was the open area of the power plant, which is a place dedicated to transmitting electricity to attract Zapdos. Lang Yin, this Zapdos has been flying for so long, and there is still so much electricity in its body. It deserves to be a legendary Pokemon. Ma Yuan complained. This Zapdos is far from the one in the Orange Islands. This time, we're just using this Zapdos for experiments. Professor Solanu's final target is the Zapdos in the Orange Islands. Ma Yuan's teammates reminded. I hope it will be faster, otherwise the police will come. Ma Yuan said, No choice, we can only take one step at a time. If they really come, then retreat. Lang Yin waved his hand. This operation took a big risk. According to the original plan, the city would not be blacked out. However, Zapdos was too irritable and directly triggered a thunderstorm, which damaged the power supply device for the city. Now half of Kanglan City has been blacked out. The key is that there is a problem with a magnetic field nearby, which has caused communication problems. The police station knows the situation of the power plant and will definitely come to check. If it weren't for the thunderstorm caused by Zapdos, Miss Junsha would have brought people here long ago. LV40 Marowak / Gym. LV42 Sand / Gym. LV39 Magneton / Quasi-Elite. LV50 Zapdos / Champion, only level 50, no wonder it's so weak. Not far away, Gary was using a telescope to observe the situation here. When he saw Zapdos, he couldn't help but complain that this Zapdos was a bit weak. It was only level 50, no wonder it was caught by Team Rocket. It was also the first time Gary saw a legendary Pokemon, and he immediately reduced the points of legendary Pokemon in his heart. Just 3 Pokemon, fight them casually. Gary secretly released Blastoise, Pidgeot, and Megaron, and secretly told them about the tactics. Zapdos made a shrill growl and golden thunder continued to surge out of its body, frantically merging into a white crystal under the iron cage. The white crystal seemed to be a bottomless pit. No matter how much power Zapdos absorbed, it could not be filled. Even if Zapdos did not release the discharge force, the white crystal could also assist the device to forcibly absorb the electricity in Zapdos' body. It's screaming so loudly, it looks like it's almost over. Seeing Zapdos showing a painful expression, Ma Yuan was excited. After all, Zapdos fell into this situation, but they were the ones who caused it, which is not something that everyone can do. Gallop! Suddenly, Marowak, who had been alert all the time, suddenly called out. His eyes kept looking at soaring in the sky. Pidgeot! Ma Yuan looked up in confusion, thinking that it was nothing. Although Pidgeot was hard to see in the city, it could still be seen occasionally. However, as Pidgeot got closer and closer, Lang Yin suddenly ordered, Magneton, use Tri-Attack on that Pidgeot. 3 spots of light appeared in front of Magneton, and 3 beams of light of different colors shot towards soaring in the sky. Pidgeot, seeing this, the Pidgeot soaring in the sky immediately flapped dual wing beat, and a hot red storm descended from the air, blocking Magneton's Tri-Attack. We've been discovered. Ma Yuan immediately reacted. It was a thunderstorm, and bird Pokémon would not fly at this time. Pidgeot was flying at this time, and he came here, so he must not be a wild Pidgeot. Bang! However, at this moment, 2 hydro pumps shot over and hit Sandslash directly, knocking him down. Sandslash, who is ground type, was hit by a hydro pump, and his face was full of pain. He collapsed to the ground and lost his ability to fight. Who are you? Ma Yuan didn't have time to care about Sandslash's contest condition. He had already seen who attacked him. Not far away, Gary and Blastoise were standing there. The hydro pump, just now, was also fired by Blastoise. It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that you better surrender, otherwise you will die here today, Gary said, and opened the 2 Pokeballs on his waist. Roar! Ultra Iron Tyrannosaurus and Aerodactyl appeared one after another. Ma Yuan and Lang Yin looked serious when they saw the Pokémon released by Gary. All the Pokémon that Gary released were Pokémon that had evolved to their final forms, and their strength was undoubtedly strong. Marowak, use Brick Break. Magneton, use Tri-Attack. Ma Yuan and Lang Yin would not surrender, and immediately ordered the remaining 2 Pokémon to fight. Marowak immediately threw out the Bone Club in his hand, and Magneton also launched Tri-Attack. Metal Tyrannosaurus, Aerodactyl, you use Stone Edge. Blastoise, use Hydro Pump. Hit it. Use Heat Wave to attack the cage and help Zapdos escape. Gary quickly issued orders. Metal Tyrannosaurus and Aerodactyl used Stone Edge together, and Stone Blades condensed and flew out with Blastoise's Hydro Pump. The skills intersected, instantly defeating the skills of Marowak and Magneton, and repelling Marowak and Magneton. Pidgeot used Heat Wave. The Heat Wave blew on the iron cage but was blocked by a barrier, and it was not hurt at all. It actually has protective capabilities. Gary was surprised. He didn't expect that the iron cage that bound Zapdos could also defend itself. This is too high-tech. Chapter 99 versus Team Rocket. It's useless. This is a capture device specially built for Zapdos. Even Zapdos can't destroy it, so your Pokémon can't do it. Ma Yuan Power Trip said. Gary didn't understand what Ma Yuan was Power Trip. Even if he couldn't save Zapdos, do you think you can escape? Bang! Bang! However, at this moment, a huge machine came here. The machine had a pair of mechanical legs and 2 arms were huge drills, all connected to the cockpit in the center. Lang Yin was sitting in the cockpit. In the previous battle, Lang Yin had taken the opportunity to enter the machine. Boy, don't think that Pokémon is great because it is strong. Technology is the strongest. Lang Yin, who was sitting in the cockpit, immediately put the Magneton and Marowak, which were almost exhausted, back into the Pokeball. I'm here. Ma Yuan jumped onto the robot and entered the cockpit behind the robot. It can be confirmed that these two guys are definitely elite members of Team Rocket. Every elite member of Team Rocket is a gold medal mechanic who can build any type of robot. Let me show you the legendary Pokemon's Thunder Shock. Ma Yuan entered the cockpit and pressed a switch. Gah! Zapdos screamed, and the current in its body was quickly sucked into the crystal under the iron cage. The crystal then fired another current and shot it at the machine. The machine absorbed all the current. The drill rapidly spins, an arc explodes, and a thunderbolt shoots towards Gary. Roar! The Super Iron Tyrannosaurus rushed up, and the lightning shot out by the machine instantly guided to the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. What? Lightning Rod! Ma Yuan was also confused when he saw Thunder Shock automatically attacking the Super Iron and was exposed. He was still thinking about letting Gary taste Zapdos' electricity, but he didn't expect that the other party also had a Pokémon with the Lightning Rod ability. This guy is not simple. He just used a drill to get rid of all its Pokémon. Lang Yin controlled the robot, and the robot's huge drill stabbed at the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. Super Iron Tyrannosaurus, Stone Edge. Gary ordered. Super Iron Tyrannosaurus pound ground. Thick stone blades emerged from the ground, but these stone blades were drilled into large holes in front of Rapid Spin's drill. It's useless. Rock skills have no effect in front of our indestructible drill, Ma Yuan said proudly. Bye. At this time, Sky's Pidgeot shot a heat wave, and the hot storm swept over the giant robot. But the giant robot was not hurt at all. Gary could see that this robot was connected to the device that bound Zapdos and could extract electricity from the crystal, and its kinetic energy could be said to be unlimited. Crobat, you also come out to help. Crobat, you and Aerodactyl attack the iron cage that traps Zapdos together. Crobat uses Cross Poison, and Aerodactyl uses Iron Head. Gary ordered. 4. Crobat and Aerodactyl rushed to the iron cage quickly. The iron cage seemed to sense that it was being attacked and generated an energy field for protection. Crobat and Aerodactyl both used skills to attack the energy field. No matter how strong the energy field was, it would have problems if it was constantly attacked. You annoying guys, get out of here. Lang Yin and Ma Yuan saw Crobat and the others attacking the iron cage, and they immediately became anxious. They quickly controlled the robots to drive Aerodactyl and Crobat away. Get out of here, Hydro Pump! Gary roared. Kami. Blastoise's barrel fired 2 water jets, directly hitting the giant robot's legs. The huge impact of the Hydro Pump made the robot retreat 2 steps. Bye. Pidgeot also took the opportunity to use Heat Wave to attack the robot. Roar! The Super Iron Tyrannosaurus used Stone Edge to continue the attack. Lang Yin could only control the drill to crush the attacking rock. The 3 Pokémon cooperated with each other, and even the powerful robot was helpless. What is this thing made of? It's so hard. Gary looked at the robot that was constantly attacked by his Pokémon. Except for being a little dirty, it was still able to move. If it weren't for the fact that the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus could absorb Thunder Shock, the opponent could have released Thunder Shock and defeated all of Gary's Pokémon. Gary used to think that the ability of the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus was not good, but now it seems that this Lightning Rod ability is definitely T0 at certain times. Moreover, the energy field around Zapdos is gradually becoming unstable. If it continues to attack, it will be destroyed sooner or later. Kami, Pistoise, Blastoise, and Pidgeot used Hydro Pump and Heat Wave again to baptize the robot. Roar! The Super Iron Tyrannosaurus used the most powerful Stone Edge, carrying Hard Stone. The power of Stone Edge has reached 240, which is comparable to self-destruct. Bang! With a sound, the robot's drill bit broke. What? Ma Yuan and Lang Yin, who were sitting in the cockpit, were dumbfounded. This robot was made by Professor Solano. Finally, it broke. Gary breathed a sigh of relief. After all, it was constantly heated and cooled, and the collision with the Stone Edge made it break sooner or later. It took more than 10 minutes to break the drill bit, which showed that the quality of this robot was quite good. As the drill bit of the robot broke, the cables inside were exposed. The edges of the Stone Edge cut the cables, and the robot was short-circuited instantly, unable to move. Damn it, You forced me to do it. Then we will die together. Start the black hole program. Lang Yin said angrily and pressed the command. Gah! Zapdos screamed, and the white crystal under the iron cage frantically absorbed the lightning in Zapdos' body. And even the electricity absorbed by the super iron Tyrannosaurus flowed out of the body and was injected into the crystal. The crystal also changed from its original white to purple. Roar! The super iron Tyrannosaurus was also startled and immediately used his ability to guide it, but it was completely useless. Zapdos, hold on. I'll get you out soon, Gary shouted and immediately ordered Ultra Iron Tyrannosaurus Rex. Use horn drill to attack the energy field. Roar! The drill on the head of the super iron Tyrannosaurus Rex rapid spin, running towards the energy force, and the ground was shaking with every step. Aerodactyl and Crobat also used Iron Head and Cross Poison to attack once again and retreated. Bang! The head horn of the super iron Tyrannosaurus Rex pierced directly into the energy field. Crack! The crystal under the iron cage shattered directly. What? The crystal is broken. How is it possible? Ma Yuan was shocked. Roar! The super iron Tyrannosaurus Rex used all its strength to rush forward, and the energy field was instantly shattered. Gah! Zapdos also immediately began to struggle. Without the crystal to provide energy, the iron cage had no restraints and was directly shattered by Zapdos' wings. Chapter 100. Zapdos escapes Gah. The freed Zapdos released all the lightning in his body, and several lightning bolts fell from the thundercloud and hit the crystal fiercely. Boom! The crystal was completely shattered into slag. Zapdos also landed from the sky and landed not far from Gary, staring at the malfunctioning robot with a bad look. During the imprisonment, Zapdos also saw what happened outside and knew that Gary was here to save him. Gary looked at Zapdos. After all, it was the first time to get close to the legendary Pokémon, which made Gary a little excited. However, now is not the time to get excited. Team Rocket must be dealt with first. Lang Yin, what should we do? Ma Yuan asked immediately. Just surrender. Lang Yin was very calm. If he went outside now, he would definitely be killed by Zapdos. It would be safer to stay in the cockpit, and it would not matter if he was caught, he would still have a chance to escape. The people of Team Rocket can be released from prison, but it also depends on whether they are loyal to Itaki. As long as the subordinates are loyal enough, even if they are less capable, Itaki will protect them. Although Itaki in the animation is not very capable, he is very tolerant to his subordinates. He will definitely take care of his loyal subordinates. However, Itaki in the special comic is very cruel. Team Rocket is dispensable to him, and the lives of his subordinates are not important. Even Team Rocket will disband if he says it will disband. Gah! Zapdos made a rage cry and wanted to release Thunder Shock, but because it had overdrawn too much power before and suffered serious injuries, it did not release the power and fainted directly. Why did you faint? Gary was a little confused. It would be a loss if he didn't capture the legendary Pokémon in front of him. Never mind, put in the Pokeball first. If Zapdos wants to run, let it run. I've got the achievement of capturing legendary Pokémon. Gary took out an Ultra Ball and threw it at Zapdos. The Ultra Ball hit Zapdos and took it in. The Pokeball did not shake at all on the ground, and it directly prompted that the capture was successful. Ding! Issued task. Capture the 3 sacred birds / reward. For each captured 3 sacred birds, reward gold bottle cap X1. Collect the 3 sacred birds. Reward God's Crown. For Pokemon below the top God potential level +1, X1. Master Rare Candy. For Pokemon below level 90, level +1, X10. Ding. Capture Zapdos. The reward has been sent to the space backpack. The sudden prompt from the system made Gary stunned for a moment. I didn't expect that catching legendary Pokemon can also activate system tasks, but this task is a bit difficult, requiring the capture of the 3 sacred birds. Moltres still has a chance to be found, but Articuno is harder to find. Although they fly all over the world, Articuno likes to fly to cold places, and most of the time they move at night, so it is difficult to capture them. Gary thinks that this task is still up to fate. He is not very interested in capturing legendary Pokemon, and he would be satisfied if he could capture 6 or 7 in his lifetime. Gary immediately picked up the Ultra Ball and looked at Zapdos' attributes. Pokémon, Zapdos, attribute, electricity, flying level, 50, potential, champion, ability, pressure, gives rival great pressure, causing rival to consume more energy when using skills. Skills, Peck, Thunder Shock, agility, magnetic flux, charge, light screen, drill peck, roost, discharge, rain dance, thunder. Intimacy, 160, full value, 255. The intimacy is so high. Gary was surprised. I thought it would be good if Zapdos had an intimacy of over 100, but it was 160, which is already very high, enough for Gary to command this Zapdos. And the ability of pressure is different from what Gary knows. In the game, the ability of pressure reduces the PP of rival skills. For example, a skill that can only be used 5 times can only be used 3 times when encountering a rival with the ability of pressure, which will be very disadvantageous. The ability of pressure in reality makes rival consume more energy when using skills, which is similar to the effect. Once the energy of Pokémon is exhausted, it will naturally be unable to use skills. For example, once the power of electric Pokémon is exhausted, it will not be able to use electric skills, and the same is true for other Pokémon. Should I increase the intimacy? Gary was tangled in his heart. This Zapdos has 160 intimacy with Gary. Gary has 10 high-level rare candies to use. Each Pokémon level up adds 5 points of intimacy. If all 10 high-level rare candies are used up, the intimacy can be increased by 50 points, which is 210. Gary knows that Zapdos can also learn Thunderbolt and Signal Beam. Teaching one skill can increase the intimacy by 10 points, and 2 skills are 20 points, which is 230 points of intimacy, which is already very high, enough for Zapdos to recognize Gary as its trainer. UBD, you actually captured Zapdos by yourself. Damn it, Zapdos was originally ours. Gary was thinking about whether to use the props rewarded by the system to increase its density, and a voice came from the robot. Ma Yuan and Lang Yen were so angry. Their original idea was to absorb all the power of Zapdos and then capture Zapdos by themselves, but they didn't expect that Gary would find out the loophole, which made them very angry. Do you really think you're safe in the robot? Gary looked at the robot with a bad look. Ma Yuan and Lang Yen, who were hiding in the cockpit, were both shocked. They were powerless now. The robot was broken, and the Pokémon in their hands could not fight. The two of them were thinking, "Don't come over. Gary, everyone has been moved away." At this moment, Sabrina appeared beside Gary. Gary was shocked and felt that Sabrina appeared too late. He had solved the problem on his side. Sabrina also looked at the surrounding situation. When she saw the broken robot and the broken iron cage, she asked in confusion, "Have you solved it all?" "Yes, it's all solved, but the 2 elite members of the rocket team are still in the cockpit of the robot." Gary said, "Do we need to get rid of them?" Sabrina asked, "Leave it to the police." Gary had no intention of killing them. He believed that the police would deal with them. After all, the crimes committed by these 2 people were too serious. Even if Bammu wanted to rescue them, he couldn't. Gary took out his phone and found that there was still no signal. He looked up at the weather. Soaring in the sky was still covered by a layer of dark clouds. It seemed that the dark clouds had to be removed. "Zapdos, come out." Gary released Zapdos. "You captured Zapdos." Sabrina was shocked. She didn't see Zapdos when she came here. She thought Zapdos had left by himself. Unexpectedly, he was captured by Gary. "Zapdos is seriously injured and needs treatment, so I plan to put in a Pokeball and take it to the Pokémon Center for treatment." Gary explained.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.